Boy, six-pack Lapadat. I got the boys back. Been a hot minute. I was just talking to Rory. We've been doing this for 4 years, Rory. 4 long ones. We've been doing preview shows, recap shows. Um, Eric, it's been a blessing. You've been involved with several preview shows, recap shows, debate shows
Mhm.
with GOAT performances, all-time greats, eras, the eras debate. Some of these podcasts got quite a bit of traction online when we get these discussions going. But you come prepared and you come with some good ideas and you flush them out and you're difficult for people to argue against. And Matt, of course, dude, how long we did these? You were an OG guest, Matt. I mean, 2007. I remember
Oh yeah.
2017 Worlds. You approaching me saying, "Ryan, I'm Matt Gary." And we started talking like, I would love to be on the podcast. I think we could talk turkey. And boom, man, we've been doing business ever since. And again, you've been on a lot of those podcasts as well and absolutely mopped up in the trivia game, which I got to bring back that freaking Jeopardy game at some point. At some point when things aren't crazy. You know, when
Yep.
there's like a lull in between all these mega shows going to all the mega events, because there's like an event all the time, right?
Yeah.
But between Worlds and Sheffield, we'll simmer down a little because Euros won't be there anymore. I think that'll be a time we start having some of these fun episodes, the debate episodes where we start going back in, and I'll bring you fellas back and we'll see if we can't find a contender to go toe to toe with Matt. But and some people actually are telling me, think of this person, think of that person. I'm like, all right, well, anyways. So we got a big world championships here, gentlemen. And this is the men's preview show as usual. We'll start at 59 kilo class. We'll work our way up to the 120 pluses. And we'll give our picks. And your boy is going to give his picks. I'm going in.
Mm.
Some of these are some of these are tough. I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah.
66s, 93s. I've talked myself out of so many picks and talked myself into so many new picks so many times. Carlos Peterson Griffith, it's got me all wound. I don't know what's going on here. I just reposted on King of the Lifts, posed the question, who's going to win? And I got the top four. And I can tell you right now, let's take the results of this poll. I don't think it's just me who's got some recency bias towards Carlos Peterson Griffith. Oh, Carlos, 34%. Now, this is a poll underneath his most recent performances in training. And I mean, he's just absolutely killing it in training. If you mind, Gustav is 28%, followed by Emil Krastev and Petrie with only 18%. Kind of interesting. Kind of interesting. Now, amongst those gentlemen, Petrie's not posting much. And I can tell you right now, when doing research for this preview show, as well as the women's that already dropped, a lot of people aren't posting much, huh? Have you guys found that? I'm looking at TikTok and Instagram, by the way.
There are some people who do not want to share certain information. They're playing their cards close to their chest. I think it's an interesting strategy, Cotton. Let's see how it works out for him.
I mean, some people will post it in their stories and they're
Mhm.
there and gone 24 hours. Like, good luck, the entire world's roster catching every single one of those stories, and they're only there for 24 hours, and then making mental notes of that 6 weeks later for a preview show. Good luck on that one. And then some people are only posting in their close friends, and right. So, and again, I try not to. I got to remember, like, shit, was that a close friend story that I saw when I saw that? So now I'm like, I don't
That
know
a
if I'm
subtle
supposed to say
flex there,
something.
Ryan? Just like, oh yeah, I'm just on everybody's close friends
It's
list.
been
I
a
can see all
month,
that.
Betty.
Nobody else
On the
did.
women's preview show, I stopped calling it close friends and I started calling it best friends because I just felt so warm and cuddly about it. But yeah, they're all my best friends. But let's start with the 59s, and of course, this is the Wasker Carpio story here. He had been chasing the world title first off, and then the Sheffield qualifying total he needed, 637.5. He's hit 638. He did that at Powerlifting America Nationals. Very emotional, hit it, walked off the side of the platform, embraced his family, tears in his eyes, because he knew if he could replicate that performance at Worlds, what that means. And not only would it mean likely, and we'll get your guys' opinion, a world title, but also punch his ticket to Sheffield and all that it means with a big show like Sheffield telling his story. And if anybody hasn't heard the KOTL Huascar Carpio story, go hear it. The guy has an absolutely phenomenal background story. I mean, you could make a freaking movie out of it. So he goes to Sheffield. That's all going to get told on a mass scale, and it'll be a great story to see. Now, it isn't only the 59s, though. Huascar Carpio these days. Don't know if you guys seen it. I'm going to tee this up. Ivan Campano from Spain, the junior star, now campaigning in the Open, he had a sketchy lockout on his deadlift, but hit 630. And at deadlift, the bar came out of his hands, but it was 630 no less. That's major league strong. Obviously, has a lot less travel time zone, etc. When it comes to the trip to Lithuania, he's competed at the world level, international level several times. If he could tighten that up, perhaps Huascar isn't just coming in and smoke showing everybody like some people think. It might be a lot tighter race than we think. And we're talking if the difference is 630 range, and probably Huascar's obviously going to be aiming for at least 638 to go to Sheffield. We're within 10 kilos of each other, aren't we? If Ivan can lock that out and Ivan can make some improvements. We also have Antoine Garcia from France in prep. Now, going in this, the nominations 587.5. Antoine Garcia, of course, won the World Championships in 2022. And his best gym totals I had seen 580 time by doubles. So a 580 kilo double, that's a huge day for him considering his nominated totals 587.5. And I know he also hit 592.5. So Antoine Garcia looking like he's a threat to go over 600 kilos. But if 600 kilos and up is going to be the podium, have you seen Nabi from Britain hit 600 kilos in the gym? He's got a big deadlift on him. 262.5 is what he's nominated with. I'm expecting him to go over that. Young guy, born in 1999. It's a pretty stacked division in the 59 kilo class. Not often you could say that, but it could be a fight for the gold. And it's going to be a fight just to get on the podium. Not often in the 59 kilo class do we have fights or background stories and guys talking trash and throwing it out there. So it's been interesting. Eric, what is your take on the 59 kilo class?
Well, first off, I want to give a big shout out to Huascar after WNBF Worlds last year, which is natural bodybuilding worlds in the which was occurred in the Seattle area. I got to train at Huascar's gym. Very kind, very great atmosphere. So, and how can you not like Huascar, right? His story, his personality, what he brings. The hero cuts as well, So his performance at PA Nats I thought was awesome. And he's really showing that if there's going to be anybody to chase down, Sergey Fedosenko, it's going to be Huascar right now in this era. And I think he's a clear favorite to win. I have him as my pick for gold. I think if he repeats or slightly improves on his performance, and even if he's conservative, obviously he's going to be trying to qualify for Sheffield officially, that he's got the first place locked up. But like you said, you can't slip at this level. And it's really cool to see Ivan Campano from Spain. He totaled, I think, just over 600 at Worlds last year. And he's probably going to improve upon that based upon some of the stuff we've seen. It would be cool to see that, him, chasing at the heels of Huascar. If you look at the nomination list, this happens sometimes with certain countries. There's a lifter from Libya who's nominated in third, but their actual totals, if you look at their history on open powerlifting, is 40 kilos less than they're actually nominated for. So but there is still a huge battle for bronze, which this is what I'm expecting. My anticipation is we're going to see Huascar and Ivan. Sorry, I pronounced that probably not the way you do for him. We're going to see Carpio and Campano in 1 and 2, and then a massive dogfight in third. Because in addition to Antoine Garcia and Nabi, who you mentioned, there's also Eugene Chong, who just won Asians with a 578 total. Relatively young, on the come up. Haven't seen a ton of performances for him. So we have a Euros champ, an Asians champ, a prior world champ, and Antoine Garcia, all fighting for what I think will be that bronze position, all clustering right around 580. I think probably Antoine Garcia is going to come out ahead, but both Nabi and Eugene are both young. They're on a streak. Their totals are heading upwards, I suspect. So I'm not confident in my third place pick. I'm primarily confident in it going a 1-2 Carpio Campano, and then probably Garcia. But after that, I think it's going to be a really big dogfight to get on the podium.
And from Japan, Yasutaka, his totals are legit. I looked him up. He's a
Yes,
legit
actually,
580er,
yep.
and he's in the mix. 35 years old. He's not he's not young, but in the 59 kilo class, look at Fedoshenko, who's still around, and at 42 years old, he's still posting up the biggest totals in 59 kilo class. He just recently lifted in Russia, and he's still up there. But before we start talking about getting off track here, Matt, you're obviously the head coach of Team USA. What are your thoughts here? I know you're going to be picking Wasker, but what's the rest of the podium look like, and what do you think about the threats towards Wasker?
I will just add one thing. Recently, it was just announced this week that Mohammed El Hamali from Libya has withdrawn, so he will not be competing. So Eric had mentioned him. He was nominated third. He announced in his story this week that he will not be competing. So that kind of narrows the field, if you will, for making the podium. I think, I don't have much to add beyond what Eric said. I think obviously, I think for me, it's going to be Waskar in 1, Ivan in 2. And then that, like you said, Eric, that dogfight for third. And I really think it's going to come down to kind of a toss-up between Antoine Garcia and Ishtak Nabi from Great Britain. And so I kind of like Ishtak in third, just because he's the bigger deadlifter. However, his deadlifts, he only makes about 37% of his deadlifts. So we have to execute a little bit better there. And if he's a star that's on the rise, or I think maybe a star that hasn't emerged yet. But I think that if he can make 3 deadlifts, I think he could potentially push Garcia off the podium. And for Waskar, it's clearly, the narrative is obviously secure the W and then secure, basically mirror image of the total that he put up at PA Nats. And now, so we've done it domestically. Now he needs to show and prove that he can do it internationally. And I believe he's up to the task.
Rory, what are your picks, sir?
Basically the same read as Matt. By the way, I missed that El Hamali had pulled out, so thanks for that, Matt. But the only thing that I think I'm going to add to that is that way off the podium, but hunting for the deadlift record as the New Zealand athlete, I have to mention him being one of the New Zealand coaches, who is he's improving on all 3 lifts, but for now he's just hunting for the deadlift record really, and so. Even the athletes who are sort of knocking on the deadlift record, it's not necessarily going to be the 275 that it is right now by the time that those athletes are sort of hunting for a chip if necessary.
Yeah, Dion's an absolute deadlift monster who's been crushing it. I'm expecting that deadlift record to fall for sure.
Recently, like ridiculous.
Yeah, at that body weight, it's absolutely phenomenal. Another person that's a bit of a sleeper. Now, this one, further down the rankings at number 9, Dixon from Canada. But so if you're looking at his nominated total, 563.5, a lot of times if you're going to be doing your research, you're not even looking that far. How far down the rankings are you going to be looking? But I mean, he's Canadian. I'm Canadian, so I do enough. I better take a look at this guy because I know he's better than nominated 9th. I know he's better than the total. Bit of a sleeper here. He's actually done 590 kilos before.
Ooh.
So, yeah. So he's an instant threat for the podium. In 590, if he could do, I mean, that puts him right onto the podium. And if he could improve upon that, now we'll have to see. Proof is in the pudding, isn't it? And some of these guys, the posts aren't all up. It's difficult to see. So only time will tell. But just a bit of a heads up here. This 59 kilo class is uber stacked. And I would not be surprised. I mean, I would be shocked if we don't have a 600 kilo and up podium. And I wouldn't be shocked if we have 5 lifters going 600 and up. It's it's getting very competitive in the 59 kilo class, which is good. I'll give you my picks here. I'm obviously going to go Wasker, Ivan. For my third pick, I'm going to go with Nabi from Great Britain. I was humming and hawing between, obviously, Dixon. He's Canadian, and he's posted up a big total. But I have to see it at an international level. And I have to see a little bit more out of him, but I do have hope and potential for him. And Antoine, he's won the World Championship before. We know his pedigree, but I got a weird feeling about Nabi. There's all types of energy coming out of him when he's posting. And sometimes you just feel it, you see it. And when we hit the World Championships, I think he's going to hit that podium. And this is a reminder, the podium is how you get to the World Games. And holy smokes, is it a battle to get onto the podium in the 59 kilo class? Love to see it. I love to see the 59 kilo class actually blossoming where it's like, wow, you're going to want to see this one. This is actually a pretty good battle. If you like battles, you're gonna love this one though. Let's talk about the 66 kilo class, gentlemen. And holy freaking smokes, is this one stacked? Now, there's been tons of talk about Team USA sweeping. And if ever there's a division where it's uncertain and it's flip of the coin, 66 and 93, and 66 is coming early. So the talk and hopes of Team USA sweeping might be completely silenced by day 2 because 66 kilo class is uber competitive. Let me talk about it here, and then I'll get your takes on it. Jonathan Garcia unofficially breaking the world record total, 7:15.5. Hasn't shared much on social media, but we know what he's about. He's been to several world championships. He's medaled. He's broken world records. The biggest thing with Jonathan, can squat a Buick, a massive bench press. He just needs to squat that Buick to depth, and it's always going to be 50-50 for him when it comes to that. Especially, he's like the Gavin Eden of the 66s. And deadlifts, he doesn't have big hands to grab that bar. His strength, forget about it. But it comes down to just logistically speaking, grabbing a hold of that bar, and it sometimes comes out of his hands. Was not the case at the American Championships when he unofficially broke the world record and claimed a spot on Team USA in a super stacked national championship, by the way, for that division. So there's the rundown to him. Now, what can you say about Panagiotis besides the fact that he's a Lion? The 2-time world champion in the 66s. He's been counted out before. He's come in nominated 4th, rallied, and won. He's been in showdowns with monsters like Sergey Glykik, who was a multiple-time world champion as well. He's in, if you want to talk about, in terms of these lifters posting, a 300-kilo deadlift. Now, he's nominated with 285. 300-kilo deadlift, 180-kilo bench. He's nominated 172.5. And I seen in March, he's not posting a lot of his squats, but I seen a 260-kilo squat. So in terms of where is Penna's strength levels, they're high. They're rather high. Coming out of Sheffield, he said one thing he wanted to tidy up was a squat. He doesn't always get all the squats in. And this is hurting his overall total. And he thinks if he cleans up his squats, he's going to have a much bigger total, and he's going to need it. Talking about that, Joseph Jordan, arch nemesis of Penna, and that's still going on to this day, by the way. 14 weeks out, hit a 240-kilo deadlift rather easy. His nominated deadlift is 287.5. I'm giving you their nominated, and I'm giving you what I seen they hit, so you know, are those numbers going up? Are they going down or around what you'd expect? Well, Penna's seem to be going up. Jonathan Garcia isn't posting much. Joseph Jordan, 14 weeks out, albeit 290 when he's nominated with 287.5. 8 weeks out, I seen him hit 160 bench press. Pretty freaking easy. He's nominated with 162.5. Joseph Jordan has not been posting a whole heck of a lot as well. He is posting in his stories. He is posting in his best friend stories. You guys probably aren't on it, but I am. Okay, but I am. And but I can't remember everything he's hitting, but I know he's hitting. Training's been going good for Joseph Jordan. Put it that way. The strength guy's athlete. Maybe Matt's got some connections there, but he is USVI, so I don't think they're going to tell him too much. Kyoto, nominated with 170 bench. I seen him hit a 172.5 bench PR. Nominated with a 280 deadlift. I seen him hit 285 deadlift double in April. Now, run that through your head. However, when it comes to Kyoto and deadlifts on competition day, kind of sort of let you guys down in the past when you guys were picking him, huh? I'm very interested in seeing if you're going to back Kyoto this time around, because I remember a lot of Kyoto talk going into Sheffield, and maybe even at Worlds last. I'd have to double back into the archives. Kyoto is a phenomenal lifter. tons of talent. If he can hold on to those deadlifts, not unlock his knees, not lean back too far, etc., and tidy up some of his technique, can he pull it off? Or has he lost some of the confidence that he previously had in some of the powerlifting community, yourselves included? I'm interested in hearing what you guys say about Kyoto and where you have him positioned, because Kyoto on his top day might be your picks for gold, or who knows on the podium, or is he on your podium? Because guess what? This is a super stacked division, and even the best of the best won't make the podium. Let's talk about Sataki from Japan. Looks good, pacing the hit all around the same of what he previously did. Nominated with 687.5. Clifton Foe of Canada, that world record deadlift is definitely in danger. He's hit 308, and he's probably going to break that world record at the IPF World Championships. I also want to say Kasim Sand, way down, nominated in 8th position with 672.5, is the previous world record holder. So again, dig deep, search up the records, take a look at his Instagram. Nominated with 237.5. Well, he squatted 260. He pulled 300 kilos in prep, and he's nominated with only 290. I mean, he hit 710.5 way back in 2022. He was the world record holder with 710.5 way back in 2022. The problem is, ever since, we haven't seen that. We haven't seen his top end ever since, and that is 2022. We're in 2024 now, gentlemen. Judging by his prep, it looks like he's on pace. But I don't know. Again, kind of like Kyoto. Have people lost confidence? How confident are you guys in picking him at this point? Let's hear it. Maybe this time we'll start with Rory. What do you think, sir?
So the only name that I want to add in that you haven't mentioned yet is Alexander Eriksson. So he's actually nominated at 19th with a 75 kilogram total. But I don't think that we can forget that he is a former world champion, right? He won the 74 kilo world championships in 2021. And so I believe that this is his first time coming down to the 66 kilo class. And obviously that means he's not going to be lifting in the primetime session. It's just the top 8. And so that puts him at a disadvantage. And I'm definitely not picking him for the podium in this instance. But I think we would be remiss to, forget who he is just because he's lifting in a different class and he's nominated a little bit lower than we've seen him in the past. So yeah, want to mention that name as well. So
I actually thought he pulled out. I thought he was higher in the nominations initially. And then when I pulled all of my notes, I didn't even look at the very bottom and I didn't see his name. I was like, oh, he must have pulled out. I thought he must have pulled out. But it's interesting that he's in there because he was rather against big weight cuts previously. Historically speaking, he was not the big weight cut guy, vocal about that. And now this is going to be a very big hero cut. I don't know how it's going to go. And I haven't seen, if you guys have any data on how he's been doing as a 66, where his body weight's at, I got nothing. I got no idea what to expect from this guy. But anyway,
I don't know
sorry, go ahead, Rory.
You're not on his best friends list, right?
I'm on his best friends list, sir, but he hasn't been posting it there.
Okay. Look, this is one of the classes that I have the lowest confidence in sort of picking a podium. And conversely, this is one of the classes that I'm absolutely the most excited to watch. And I don't know, maybe last year was the first time that I was really excited to watch the 66s. When there's one athlete who's just an absolute runaway, it's a little bit less exciting, right? And so having this 4, 5, 6 way battle for the podium, I think is going to be a really cool experience for those athletes, and it's going to be really cool for the audience. So I think for my podium in number 3, I am going to pick Kyoto Ushiyama. I was previously very, very hot on him, and he didn't quite perform a couple of times now, but I do still think that he has some fantastic totals in him. He's got a little bit more experience on the international platform now. In this case, he is not coming off having sort of recently competed at Japanese nationals, which is something that he has done in one of the previous meets where I ended up being disappointed by what he ended up doing on the day. So 3rd place, Kyoto Ushiyama. 2nd place, Jonathan Garcia. And 1st place, I'm picking Pana to win. So I think previously the Pana has been cutting more weight than he is doing this time. I think he is only walking around at about 69 kilograms at the moment, whereas previously he was cutting from higher. His training is looking really, really good. He previously had a bit of a deadlift curse where he was stuck around 292.5 sort of consistently for a long time. I saw he pulled like a quite hard 300, but he pulled a 300 recently in training, which looked like not easy, but it looked clean, white lights, you know, all of the things that we do want to see. So my top pick is Pana.
Interesting. Wow. Matt, that drew some facial expressions from you, sir. Let me get your take on the 66s.
Yeah, this is an incredible class, man. This is unbelievable. I think this is one of the two classes, like we said, the 66s and the 93s, where this is a race to 9 attempts. And so I think, you know, this is going to determine, I think on any given day, you can make a strong argument for a lot of these guys being quote unquote the strongest lifter in the room. Because at individual and at various times, they've each proven that, where they have been the strongest lifter in the room, even when they've missed lifts and so forth. But when you start looking at the percentage of lifts that they make, you've got Garcia and Jordan who tend to make the most lifts. They're both averaging 7.3 and 7.1 respectively. And so when you start to look at some of the other lifters, they're averaging 6 or fewer attempts, and that's not good. And so, and specifically with their third deadlift percentage, where I think it's going to be critical to make a third deadlift in this class. There's only 2 people who make above 50% of the third deadlifts, and that's Jonathan Garcia, oddly enough, not known as being a deadlifter, and legendary Sung Ting Se. So I don't want people to do a bit of a history lesson, if I may. This gentleman's 42 years young. He has been competing since 1998. He is a junior world champion. He started out his career in the 52 kilo class for men's. That's when they used to have 52 kilos. Longtime equip lifter, transitioned to raw. I think he still dabbles a bit of both. Fun fact, he won the 66 kilo class at the 2012 IPF World Cup in Sweden.
Oh my gosh.
And I was there for that. So this guy is legit. He's the real deal. And I know that he's nominated a little bit further down, but he's got a big deadlift and he's a gamer and he can make some noise. I don't think he's going to make the podium, but I just wanted to give him some clout and a shout. And so I think this is going to come down to, I mean, I'm going to be a homer. I'm not picking against my guy. Jonathan Garcia is full of confidence. I've been privy to his lifts behind the scenes. He is looking fabulous. I spoke to him today. We installed his game plan. He could make weight tomorrow. So, and that's not hyperbole. That's the truth. And so I'm not going against Jonathan. I think the fight for second and third is going to be fun. And I think I'm just going to pick, I'm going to go out on the limb here. I'm going to pick Kasim Senamong to come in, or Senamong Kasim-san to come in second, just because he's done it before. He's got a huge deadlift, a bit erratic, but his training, as you said, Ryan, is on the uptick, and let's see a resurgence from him. And I've got Pana coming in third. I just think that, I think Kyoto, until he proves to me that he can correct this wildly inconsistent phase that he's going through, I just can't see him stringing together enough lifts to crack in the podium. And so I know that that's a controversial pick. It probably goes against the grain. There's probably a lot of people, or a significant amount of people, who are picking Kyoto to be on the podium, perhaps even win. But just wildly inconsistent technically, in the squat and with that kind of pre-hinge and then squat and so forth, and then the deadlift. It just seems like, he does great work in training, but hasn't been able to kick that into fruition, if you will, on game day. So I've got Jonathan Garcia winning the class, Senamong coming in second, and Pana in third.
Rick, in this crazy division, make sense of it for me, buddy.
I think it's tough because I actually think there's a lot of different ways this could go, and I'll bring in a few other pieces of information that haven't been mentioned. One, Kyoto recently left his job as a firefighter, which is going to substantially change probably how he's recovering from training. Haven't seen a lot of training footage from him though. He is working with Kedrick, so he now has more, as Rory said, international experience. So maybe it's the whole like, hey, I got to double down on bets because I've previously put some faith in Kyoto and it hasn't panned out. But I actually have Kyoto on the podium in third and seeing a trend towards him doing better. And I do admit that this has not worked out for me in the past, but you know what? Snake Eyes is gonna hit, man. Black's gonna hit. I'm the guy in Vegas. I'm gonna lose all my money. I'm gonna do it again. So I think that's relevant. But I had a really tough time picking because Joe Jordan has not been showing a lot of training videos. But if you read what he's saying, there's a level of confidence and a kind of a you don't know what's coming, but things are going well. And I'm a threat undertone that seems it seems sneakily legitimate to me is my emotional take on that, which may mean literally nothing. So I think Joe Jordan might surprise. Pana is, and we have seen this before. Like if you add together his 3 best lifts, he could you could make an argument that he'd walk away with it, but that's just typically not what happens on the platform. If he gets a really good deadlift, he's typically not getting his really good squat. He hasn't shown us a squat since March, and maybe because he said, "Hey, I'm working on this a lot." So like, yeah, he's got that 260, but he hasn't shown a squat in almost 3 months. So it makes me wonder, like, he's putting all this effort into it, it's not going well. Is that why he's not posting about it? That's my concern. So I have Pana in second. I think he'll be able, just because he has the strength, that he'll put something together. He will not let himself, like get off the podium or slip too far. But I think he's going to end up in a fight that maybe he's in a position he can't pull himself into first. And yeah, like I was actually looking at Kasim Sang as well from Thailand because things are going well. He had such a high total. I ultimately didn't have enough faith to put him on the platform or enough data. So I am going to go with Garcia for first. So not super, like I'm not confident in any of my top 3. I'll say that. But I think all of those picks are potentially interchangeable, even some of the folks who are not on my top 3. So this is a very interesting class. I think a very volatile class. I think one of the harder ones to predict when I was going through it, and I'm just really keen to watch it.
Ryan, if I can also add just a bit of information here, I think the path to the podium is strikingly different for each one of these lifters. I mean, clearly we're going to have a world record chip in play with Jonathan Garcia in the squat. The bench is clearly off the table because I think that world record is Eddie Berglund, and that's under the old bench rules. So I think that one, it's safe to say that nobody's going to sniff that one. And then the deadlift is certainly on the table, probably for Kyoto, maybe Senamong, Kasim Sen, and Clifton Foe, who's probably on the outside looking in, if you will, but can make some noise with that deadlift. So there's going to be some chips in play. And I just think, the path for Jonathan, I mean, we had a fantastic strategy call today. He knows what he's up against. He knows that he has to go out and can't leave that decision to the jury. So the sermon that I've been preaching to this national team this entire time is irrefutable. That's our word, irrefutable. We need to be, it needs to be held to an irrefutable standard. We need to take it out of the referee's hands. 2-1 is not good. And Jonathan knows that. And he's had a strong prep. And I believe he's going to go out there like a boss and bury his squats. And so the world record is in play, clearly, because the world record is his, for the squat. But I don't necessarily think we have to have that chip. So we could conceivably squat a little bit more conservatively, bench a little heavier, and still be there. But he knows the importance of making lifts. And so Pana, there's no chips in play for him. So he has to lift better. He has to make more attempts. He only averages 5.9 out of 9. And so clearly I think, with the strength of the other lifters, if Pana wants to maintain a podium finish or maintain his grip on the world title, he simply has to make more than 6 attempts. He's going to have to make 7, 8, 9 lifts to be relevant. And so, and then you're looking at Kyoto and some of these other people, where they've got to be holding serve until that final deadlift and then try to load up at the end. So I just think it's an interesting dynamic when you look at it. And the same conversation can be had for the 93s, and we'll get to that, where everybody's path to their biggest total looks a lot different.
I don't know what to make about Alexander Erickson. Eric, you're okay. In terms of people weight cutting and whatnot, you probably have the best. What do you make of this? Is this a huge mistake, a massive gamble? Would he have been better off as a 74? I mean, difficult to say right now. We have zero data points, but I am very surprised he made the move. He's going to be in the B group automatically. What's going on here?
I mean, obviously, so I'll give you a big picture historical perspective on powerlifting. There's actually some research on body composition in powerlifting that was done before the most recent boom that didn't necessarily find as strong of a relationship as you might see in weightlifting, with having basically a higher fat-free mass index relative to your body fat. So basically having a lower body composition, being leaner with success. There's not recent data on that, but I am almost 100% confident that if that study was to be done again, we would start to see that relationship. Because as you see a larger number of people get into a sport, the selection criteria becomes more and more and more important. This conversation of outliers, as a researcher, I've had to kind of just zip my mouth a little bit, because that does mean something specific.
Yep.
But I will say that anytime you increase the total amount of people in a given distribution, there's going to be more quote unquote outliers, right? Being 3 or 4 standard deviations from the mean is, you don't get to make errors and have that be enough, because there's somebody else who's also 4 standard deviations from the mean, typically. So it is a competition among outliers, which means that every stone needs to be overturned. And when you look at weightlifting, which is a more well-developed sport, and you have some, especially the Eastern and Asian countries, which have a lot of people invested in it, you will see very, very lean people who are able to perform in a weight class restricted sport, being very lean at a high level. And that is kind of a requirement. And to spoil the plot on a bit of of Kedrick's research, something that he has found a relationship with when you're looking at some of the more recent world championships and podium placers, and this is observational, it's not causational research, is that people who are able to cut more weight and maintain their strength, and this is kind of like tend to be a higher likelihood of podiuming. And I think we're seeing more and more skilled weight cuts occurring. There are more practitioners in IPF powerlifting who know what they're doing. We're seeing much more of a kind of a modern sports science model leading to success. You have people taking analytical approaches to attempt selection, kind of following in the footsteps of one great guy named Matt. I forget his last name, but he's got just a beautiful smile and really nice, deep voice. But yeah, I think something like Grary, I think his name, Matt Grary. I forget his name. Anyway, but anyway, the point is, there's a lot of analytical sports science heavy approaches that are happening, and we're seeing success in that. It was kind of maybe not the norm that your Jason Tremblay's, your Mike Teixeira, your, I'll even put throw my hat in the ring, the approaches we were taking. But now there's a lot of people who've taken that and are standing on the shoulders of giants, and we're seeing that reflected in the athletes who are succeeding. In all but the 120 and 120 plus classes, you're seeing leaner and leaner physiques. So I think it is not an unreasonable thing to try, and we have seen marked success in a number of lifters, Tim Monagatti, Evie Corrigan, anyone from New Zealand. I'm just kidding. But like many other lifters, Agatha Sitko, exactly, yeah, who have successfully done this. So I don't think, Team Sweden is going to be having someone doing this the wrong way. I'll put it that way. So I think they're going to be taking the most effective strategy to do this. And I think while it might look like a gamble from the outside, I think it is ultimately a gamble that people are going to have to try. And that each lifter, if they want to be successful at their own peak potential, it's going to need to see the leanest weight class they can still be at their peak in. And that is going to be the name of the game, I think, in basically all except the top 2 weight classes in most of powerlifting moving forward. So it's not a bad idea. How it pans out, we'll have to see.
Probably a couple of other things that we can add for Alexander specifically, right? Like he's got a great support network. He trains with Gustav on a regular basis. He's got his family, his partner. He's got, I believe he gets some sort of like meat sponsorship from the government that gets shipped to him periodically. Like he's
like
really
not a sponsorship to go to a meat, but a meat sponsorship, as in like chicken and beef. Yeah.
Yeah, he gets like steak mailed to him.
Right.
Like there's things that help you set up for success like better, right? And he's got a lot of those things going in his favor. At least it looks that way from the outside. Though I can see that he competed in March at 72.9 kilograms. Just pulled up his open powerlifting. So yeah.
The final thing I was going to add is I wonder if this is also a strategic move on behalf of Team Sweden in an attempt to get more points. I mean, they've got Berglund lifting at 74, and perhaps they feel Alexander Eriksson can score more points for their team because they're not bringing a full team, and few federations do. But perhaps he can score more points at 66 than he could at 74. So rather than double up at 74, maybe they figured, before the final nominations go, we'll throw him in the 66s. I don't want to speak out of turn. I'm just speculating. Maybe that was a strategic move on their part as well.
I'm super intrigued to see what happens here. If he can retain his strength, an instant threat in the 66s, obviously.
Yep.
I mean, his total at 74 would win it, right? Like it's instant threat automatically if he can retain his strength. Very intrigued in what happens here. What goes against him, though, I mean, he has no data points on whether or not he could do this, and he's in the B group. He's done, and everyone else gets to see. If he has an absolutely monstrous total, and his total is anywhere near what his 74 kilo total is, maybe it doesn't matter. I don't know.
Psychologically, it'll be interesting. It depends on his personality, but in the B group, he will likely just get to try to put together a PR total and make smart moves, not having to worry about position, and then just, put it in God's hands, as you will. Now, that is a distinct disadvantage in terms of other people can then make moves on just, okay, what do I have to do to beat that total? Because I know it's not going anywhere. But I think psychologically, some lifters, that actually leads them to a more consistent performance. I don't know enough about the man to make a comment on that, but I think it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But there's going to be this kind of immovable like object somewhere, probably in like the top 5, that everyone's going to have to deal with, that they're going to be kind of fighting with, which will be interesting.
Isn't this just the craziest? This division, I don't know, fellas. Tell me right now. Do you think this is the most stacked at Worlds? Look at all of the storylines, including Alexander now.
Yeah.
This one or 93s?
Yeah.
It's gotta be.
Yeah.
This one or 93s.
Definitely.
I mean, this one you might not even make the top 5 in your world class. It's phenomenal. I'll give you my picks and then we'll move into the 74s. So for the bronze medal position, I'm going to take Kasim Sand based off of historically the 710.5 world record holder and the lifts I've seen in the gym. I'm rolling off that faith that this young man is still going to be able to pull it around and gather himself and put something 710 and up, which I believe 710 and up is good enough for the podium, and I believe he could do that. I think in silver medal position, been humming and hawing about this one all day, all week, all goddamn. Jonathan Garcia. And I could be talked into Garcia for gold. The reason why I'm going to sway with the gold medalist over Garcia, and that's going to be Penna, is yes, Pennaless misses lifts, like Matt said. And usually you need to hit lifts to clinch titles. But my man somehow keeps doing this. He's a 2-time world champion, won the showdown of the 66s at Sheffield when he was the underdog. And it wasn't just you fellas. when they posted, I posted online, actually, I posted online, and I think SBD Sheffield posted online, who do you think is going to win the Battle of the 66s? Kyoto won theirs and KOTL's. The community had Kyoto winning. And again, Penn had missed lifts, but still pulled it off. I don't know. He's also not pulled it off before. It's a hot, cold situation. We haven't seen Jonathan Garcia go all the way yet, but he's capable. Just haven't seen it yet is the key word, but he's capable. But I've seen Penna do it. I saw him do it at Worlds, and then I've seen him replicate winning the battle at Sheffield. That's why when I'm unsure, I'm going to lean with the guy who's done it before. Didn't mean to rhyme there. But Jonathan Garcia, when he told his story about his new son being born early and they didn't think he was going to make it, and he was down on his knees bedside when they were hoping and praying that his son will pull through, and he said, son, if you make this, I swear to God, I promise you, I will win a world title. And his son made it and pulled through, and then the World Championships is announced, and he is going to compete for the world title on his son's first birthday,
which is also Father's Day, and 3 days and 3 days after Jonathan's birthday.
So
Jonathan,
it's also Father's Day, dude. What is this?
Yep.
What is this? This is the Chicago Bulls, Michael Jordan last stand when he lost his father, and then the year coming back, he won the title, and the last game was played on Father's Day, and he was playing it for his father. What is this? What are we doing here? You might just sway me to Jonathan Garcia for gold medal now that I know it's Father's Day. Even Penna, who's a hopeless romantic, he's the hopeless romantic pick last year. Maybe, you know what? Maybe it's Jonathan Garcia for the gold medal now. Maybe that was it right there. Because I am that hopeless romantic, god damn it. And I don't know.
Should we discuss their star signs? Would that help you make a better decision?
Can we do it?
Love your co-star there, man.
Should we discuss their star signs? But here's one that I'm not up in the air and unsure about. The 74 kilo class. Holy moly. All right. Let's be honest here. It's Perk, and it's Perk by a country mile. Perk, I seen him hit 582 in the gym. He's not going to need that to win the world title. I'm sure he'll take his foot off the gas and not even take the last pull if he doesn't think he needs it. I don't think any of us here are going against Perk for the gold medal. It's more, how's this going to look? The strategy-wise, obviously Matt's not going to reveal too much. But Chael Backlund has emerged as a stellar force in the 74s, reemerged really. 8:15, I seen him do 8:10 in the gym and then called out Bob Matthews after hitting 8:10 in the gym because Bob Matthews said on the KOTL podcast, I am going to not only win the 120 world title, but I'm going to win best lifter at the World Championships. And Chael Backlund heard the podcast and said, my friend, I seen your numbers. It's not going to be enough. So Shell, I remember Shell back when he's winning world titles, calling out Taylor Atwood. He'll shoot from the hip. I mean, I love it. He's come on the podcast before, and he'll call people out. He loves a good competition. But so Shell, anyways, coming in at 8:15, I'm very interested in seeing how far he pushes Perk and forces Perk's hand, and of course has been chipping away at that world record, which makes Perk's Sheffield ambitions that much more difficult. If Shell wasn't around, the world title will still be around 790.5. Shell is around, and now the freaking world title's 815. That is a significant 25 kilo spread. He just took off the world record, or added to, however you want to look. And Perk is like, my friend, now I'm actually vulnerable when Sheffield rolls around. Thank you. And it might get worse at this World Championship. Kind of interested in seeing what you guys anticipate. Tim Monagatti, New Zealand's own. I got a couple, a Kiwi/American as well. Hit 330 as a deadlifts with ease. Little while back, he hit 347.5. This is about a month out. It was a scrap, but he's nominated with 331. So 330 with threes, 347.5, a hell of a scrap a month ago. Probably going to end up somewhere in between there. He's nominated with 288.5 squat. Seen him squat 290. It was work, but he squatted 290. But there's other contenders. So I'll just give you my picks right off the bat. I don't think there's any major surprises myself. Kind of interested in seeing what you guys say. I'm taking Perk, then Shell, then Tim Monagatti. The real battle would have been if Kelly Johansson was in there. Establishing that podium would have got a whole lot tougher, especially between Tim and Callie, just like the last World Championships. Callie's gone. Now we got Fenn from Taiwan, Joshua Wright, Blake Garrett, Eddie Berglund. I mean, just off podium, all those fellas have been crushing, and all those fellas have been doing good. I want to tell you, Fenn, Chun Chia Fan hit 250 for a double on squat, nominated with 252.5. Hit 310 on his deadlift, soft lockout, but he's nominated with 300, or lost to that lockout, but he's nominated with 300. So 310, it's still gone up, and has a personal best bench of 215, and he's nominated with 205. So that nominated total he's coming in with, I mean, this is all in training, but throw it out the window because he's hit 777.5 kilo total. That's 20 kilos up. Of course, all training. Let's see what happens on the day, but I don't think it'll be enough to bump Tim off the podium. I expect Tim to go 800 and up. Shell to enter the 820s, and Perk, he's going to eat his food and do whatever he has to win, and probably no more. Who hasn't gone yet? First. You, Matt?
Yeah, I'll go first.
Okay.
I don't have a whole lot to add. Ryan, I think you nailed it. I think just the way that the nominations are set up, that's how it's going to unfold. Clearly, I'm going to pick Austin. That's my guy. And for obvious reasons. Remember, he totaled 839 kilos on 7 lifts in Reno. And so the only thing I will tell you on strategy is we will be taking that third bench. So we're going to be using bullets in our gun. We have tremendous amount of respect for Chell. Love him. Absolute legend. I fully anticipate him to increase his total. You know, his total's 815. I would not be the least bit surprised if he adds 5 to the squat, 5 to the pull, maybe 2 to the bench. So he's 825, 835-ish capable. And so Austin can't go to sleep at the wheel, and that's not going to happen. Not going to allow it. And I think Tim, is going to solidify his place in third, and that deadlift world record of 340 will clearly be in play for those two guys, Chell and Tim, if they need it. But I think it's going to go exactly as the nominations say.
Eric, you got any other notes, or is this pretty much what we're looking at? Is there any surprises we can expect?
So I think this is one of the more locked up ones. I mean, there is some other universe where we get actually to see Taylor and Callie in the mix, which would be really cool. But it's not happening this time.
Right.
And I think because of some of the individual lift strengths, I think people can hold their position. You mentioned some potential threats for the podium, but Tim has a massive deadlift, and it looks like it's on right now. So I think he can even afford an error on the squat or bench. And I think if he's able to choose the right pull on his third deadlift, he could make sure that he's not coming off that podium pretty well. So I think it is an ask for anyone to move up, and it requires mistakes on the person ahead of them. So Austin would have to really have a bad day, I think, for Backlund to encroach upon him. I think the nominations are actually a little more deceptive as far as how close they could appear, with only it being a 24 kilo spread, because it's probably more than that, even with Kel moving up and doing better based upon his training total. And I think Tim moving into the low 800s is also not as close as it looks to Kel. So I think we've got a pretty solid 1, 2, 3, and it would require a mistake on the part of someone ahead in each case for someone below to move up.
Rory, is the nominations your 1, 2, 3 as well?
Nominations are my 1, 2, 3. Like, not only would somebody have to make a mistake for that to change, or for one of the men between 4th and 10th probably to take that place, but like for one of those men in the 4th to 10th dogfight to jump onto the podium would require like not just a mistake, but probably quite a big mistake. So yeah, I've got 1, 2, 3 exactly as the nominations.
Yeah, and it should be said, those gentlemen off podium, Fenn, Joshua Wright, Blake Barrett, Eddie Berglund, it will be a good dogfight. all the jockeying
Huge
around to collect
dogfight
team
for
points.
like 3rd through 10th-ish.
Yep. Formidable.
Or 4th
all
through
those
10th,
guys.
yeah.
Yeah.
4th through 10th, rather.
Yeah, but I agree. I mean, the spread on the podium is just too great now with Kelly gone. Moving into the 83s. This is, of course, the return of none other than Russell Orhe. He's nominated with 860. In training, took deadlift 345 for a double. He's nominated with 340. This was back in April 25th that this was uploaded. This week he squatted 340 which is 749 pounds. He's nominated with 330. He's looking strong. He's at his top end strength. I don't know if he's going to showcase it. I'm sure he wants to win as marginally as possible to set himself up nicely for Sheffield. But having said that, we do have some contenders in the mix. Kengamu Jurans, Europeans, not only the winner in 83 kilo class, but also best lifter. Talked to him in the DM, says he's ready. He's nominated with 180 bench. I seen him hit 175 for a triple. So it looks like his bench is moving. He's nominated with 335 on deadlifts, and he's taken 325 for a triple. So those lifts are moving, but squat is really his bread and butter, and his squat is also moving for him. So I'm anticipating that 823.5. He'll probably nudge that up and force Russell's hand, but I don't know if Jurans can take this into the 830s. I think Russ can still win relatively comfortably. Of course, there's always an Aharo. Now, if we're talking about, it's not just the win, but Jurans has to look behind him. All these fellas do, because it's a World Games year. Not only do you want to win a medal and get on the podium at the World Championships, which is phenomenal, but there is a very tight race in the 83s to get on the podium and what color of medal that is. Jurans has to worry about arch rival Aharo from Hungary. Aharo, obviously an absolute monster deadlifter, nominated with 812.5, but that deadlift, I don't know where it's at. I don't know if he knows where it's at. He's not posting very much. Very hard to tell where his squat is. Usually he's squatting into the 600s. How deep? Don't know. Is there progress there? His bench press is usually off. And if he squats a lot, his dead comes down. If he deads too many times, heavy at the top end, he doesn't have the final pull at the end. It's very difficult guy to call, but I think he's going to go all in. Does he go all in to take silver, or is he going all in for the podium? France's Yanis Buchu, nominated with 810. That's just 2.5 kilos off of Aharo. So it's going to be a tight one. I seen him pull 330 in prep, nominated with 340. And Canada's Kafui Hochoyame, nominated with 800.5 kilos. And I know the strength guys are pretty high on his possibilities. He's coming back from injury, but I heard he's going to be 100%. Of course, former junior champ Edoardo Mazzucchelli of Italy, rounding out number 6. Rory, what are you thinking about the 83s?
I've got Russell Orhe in first, and like obviously none of these things are sewn up. Like there's 1,000 things that need to happen between today and the podium to actually secure that gold medal. And if we talk about whether the US men's team is going to sweep later, I can talk a little bit more about that. So not sewn up, but my pick for first is Russell Orhe. For the pick for second and third gets a little bit more conflicted for me, because on one hand, what I used to say about Jurans is that he wasn't very consistent and he didn't make a lot of attempts and he didn't end up totaling anywhere near what his potential was. But his last 3 meets in a row now, he has actually performed at a really high level. Unfortunately, the last time that he did not do that was the World Championships last year. And so is that a little bit of a curse, or maybe a little bit of a mental block where he struggles to perform when it matters, perhaps, versus the silent worker meet that happened like a month later and he totaled, what was it, like 20 kilos more like a month later? Is it some sort of mental thing that is going to come back this meet specifically because it's this meet? It's possible. And in Aharo, what we've seen previously is that he would be in whatever place he was in, 8th, 5th, 4th, whatever, and he would load up exactly what he would need to be in first, irrespective of basically anything else, and try and pick it up, and with varying degrees of success. However, given that this is a World Games year and there is actually something meaningful on the table for being on the podium but not first, does that change his entire strategy? Because if it was me, that would change my entire strategy. Like, obviously, if you come first and if you get a high enough total, you're going to Sheffield, and that's really, really cool. But also, if you come top 3, you're going to the World Games, and that's also a really special thing. And so for me, I would be looking at that and going, hey, look, what is the minimum that I need to do to secure third beyond all doubt? Because you only get to go to a World Games once every 4 years. You know, if you miss this year, you might not get another shot. This might be the shot for you. So I don't know where his head is at as far as that. I'm sure he believes that he can pull into first place if he's even within 40 kilos of it, honestly. But is he going to risk missing the podium completely to do that? I don't know, because I don't know what his priorities are. So a little bit risky here, but I'm going to go Russell Orhe in first, Jurens in second, and third place, I'm actually going to go Giannis, because I actually suspect that Enna is going to be off the podium and he's going to pull big to try move high on the podium, but miss. That's how I see it playing out. But again, other than first place, I wouldn't be totally surprised if that shakes out differently on the day.
Excellent points about Enahoro being that gunslinger who historically, worlds, Euros, whatever, shoots for first. Are you going to do that with Russell Orhe in the mix? And quite frankly, are you even going to bother pursuing the rivalry with Jurens, which has been a great rivalry back and forth with World Games on the line? And you could settle and just be like, Jurens, you got this one. We'll settle this when I see you at another time. Or is that how Inohoro is made up? That's kind of what I'm asking you guys, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Very difficult. Eric, what do you think?
I have very similar analysis to Rory, but I think Enna is going to make a different decision. And this is almost like, I hope you listen, Enna, and I hope I hope you consider what I have to say, because this is almost advice rather than a prediction. I think this is one of those cases where the top 3 can do something very meaningful, get to World Games, which is no joke, and then you have the opportunity to go big. You know, you can like whip it out, throw it on the table, go hard, or go home at World Games if you want. So it's opening the door for even a bigger play, just to kind of convince the dog that I know is in each one of these men. But there's a case here for the top 3 podium people for each just running their own race. And what I mean by that, and Russ doesn't need there's no advice to Russ, because Russ is a clear favorite. He did 860 on what he felt was a bad day. You know, he's a very confident fellow. No one would doubt him that. And he's a clear favorite. So Russ first, easy choice, in my opinion. Second place, I think if Jurens just runs his race, makes lifts, and doesn't worry about much else, he has that pretty well locked up. I think he can be a bridge too far for the third place finisher, who I think, if Enna sets his sights on bronze, on securing what he needs to do to get into that third place on the podium, he has that locked up. As soon as he starts to make a decision of, oh, maybe I should go after Jurens or even pull for the win, he could see himself falling precipitously in terms of his total. And that would, I don't think he'll make that decision with World Games on the line. And I could be wrong. I'll say it the way I should say it. I don't think he should make that decision. He's going to do what he's going to do. He's the human crane. And then I think, Giannis can potentially capitalize on people's mistakes and move on to the podium, which would be awesome because, again, World Games is on the line. So those are my picks. Not a whole lot different than Rory, just thinking that maybe Enna is going to make a different calculus.
I should add, so Edoardo Mazzucchelli from Italy, he's hit 800 kilos previously, coming back from an injury, a knee injury, I believe, hit 290 in the squat, nominated with 297.5. Depends how back you think he is. And Kafui also obviously had an injury, but that 800.5 kilo total is from last summer. Yep. That's an old total. And if you talk to the strength guys, they were thinking he could be up 10, 15 kilos from there. It just depends how back from injury he is. I'm close to Kafui. We're legit from the same hometown. He says he's back. Is he 815 like they previously thought before he was injured? Going into the Western Regionals, they were thinking 815 for that championship. The strength guys openly when they thought it was him versus Nick Manders versus Adam. It was going to be 815 is what they thought they could push him at, and he'd already done 800.5. That's not a crazy jump. Just letting you guys know what Caffley's top end is when he's healthy. He's been overlooked before in these kind of battles. I don't know, Matt. What do you think?
I agree with everything that everybody said. Great analysis from all of you. Don't have a lot to add. I too would encourage Enaharo to play for third or second if he's lifting well and Jurn starts to fall apart, but I don't see that happening this time. If Enaharo starts to throw caution to the wind, yeah, he can get caught from either Giannis or Caffley if Caffley's on and healed. So let me just say this about Russ. This is something that we've been talking about privately. Legacy defining competition for him. This seals the deal. And that's what I've been preaching to him. So he wins this one. He's the best 83 kilo lifter we've ever seen. And that's no disrespect to Brett Gibbs, because as of today, I would give it to Brett. So Brett, but there's, they've each won 2. Brett's got 2 silvers, which, 2 golds, 2 silvers, and obviously was a generation or light years, if you will, ahead of his time. But this is a legacy defining comp for Russ. And so Russ wins this one, and he's it. He is him. And so we've been talking about that. We've been talking about him hitting his lifts again to an irrefutable standard. He knows that he's going to aggregate a lot of eyeballs, and I 100% believe that he's up to the challenge. So my picks are Russell Orhe, Jurns in second, and Enaharo playing it smart, realizing I need to survive this battle in order to get into the war, which is World Games.
I'm going to agree. I'm going to give you my picks right here. I'll agree what you said about Russ. I got Russ number 183 of all time, but I think if anyone's going to dispute it, and I get people in my DMs when I say stuff like this, they say Brett for all the things you said, 2 golds, 2 silver, and he did it ahead of his time. But Russ has been number 1 since 2019, but he just wasn't at Worlds. But it's, anyways, I got Russ already number 1, but I think this, to your point, would make it relatively undisputed. There's always going to be somebody who disputes it, but I think even his harshest critics are going to have to tip their hat and be like, okay, fine. All right. When are we going to stop bringing up Brett? I think, we'll never stop bringing him up. But
we're
over
never going
Russ,
to stop bringing up Brett.
No, we're never going to stop bringing him up. But over Russ, in that respect, I think this one might clinch that, especially he's already at 860 if he could replicate a big total there. I'll take Jurens in silver, and I'm going to take in, fellas, this is my man. I'm taking Caffley. I'm taking King Calf. I'm telling everybody, though, he's not just Canadian. Like, this is my man. Like, I used to coach Calf. I remember his very first competition. I've known him forever. I'm at his wedding. We're like boys in real life. Like, we go on walks together and shit like that, and real life stuff, not just, hey, how you doing in DMs or whatever. So it'd be very difficult for me to go against my mans like that. But all that said, legitimately, he is capable of around 815. And that's not a big ask to put 15 kilos on your total in a year. And he's in his prime. So even though, call me biased, and I would raise my hand and say, yes, I am biased, he's a legitimate threat. And people have looked past Calf before. And there's a reason why he's still here. And he's been to so many freaking world championships, and he's back again. All right. There it is. But I agree. Enaharo is absolutely intriguing. I love the guy. I love that he's in the mix. Having a guy like Enaharo in the mix is so exciting because he can finish well off podium, or he could be right at the well, probably not in a year Russ is here, but he could be near the top of the podium with 1 deadlift. I want to see what happens. I love it. Now the 93s, gentlemen. Holy freaking smokes. Let me break it down from what I've seen. So Brennan Petrie, he's not posting a lot in his stories. He posted up a 320 squat. He's done 315 on the nomination. So judging by his squat, training is going well. A lot of these are in his stories, so you're not going to see him on posts or up and down within 24 hours. Matt will have seen stuff, but he's not going to give away too much. I know Matt likes to play his cards close to his chest, so I won't put you on the spot, Matt. But judging off that squat, his strength levels are high. His strength levels are PR level high, and he's going to need them because we have Gustav Hedlund squatted 300 kilos for a double. Gustav, his training, historically speaking, it's sub-max efforts. It's kind of the way he lifts. He's not the type of guy like a Penna or, whomever, Russ, hitting big numbers in the gym. So you got to have been paying attention, but he looks like his strength levels are high to me anyways. Carlos Pedersen Griffith, 325 kilo squat double, and he's nominated with 332.5. 325 squat double, and he's nominated with 332.5. That's insane. That's a crazy squat double. He's nominated with a 360 kilo deadlift, and I seen him deadlift 370 kilos. That's 10 kilos up. Now, did he walk in there and just deadlift that day? Probably. He's not cutting weight, doing 3 lift, but that's 10 kilos up from his previous deadlift. And he's all types of fired up. And we've seen him at Sheffield. When he talks big, he still shows up and shows out big. So his numbers are flying. And if anyone's going to pull a major upset in this powerlifting championship, Carlos Pedersen Griffith might be the guy. However, Emil Krastov from Bulgaria, nominated with 872.5, but I don't think anybody believes that's where he's at. 2 weeks out, his weekly total was 885 kilos, but everybody remembers back in February when in one day, not a weekly total, but in one day he did 906. Now, this is all in the gym. Where is he now? Will he have 906? Will he need more? Very interesting questions. I'm interested in hearing how you guys swing on this. Also, shout out to Christian from Great Britain. Any given day, he could pull together a big total as well. If some of these gentlemen in the top 4 start missing, and when you have a cluster of lifters this close and the pressure is applied, sometimes everybody hits and it's crazy totals. Sometimes it's a bloodbath. Not for all of them, but at least a couple of them. Because they push each other so much, and a guy like Christian from Great Britain can capitalize. Matt, I know you're going to go with your boy Petrie. That's fine, obviously.
Of course.
Help me out. What are you seeing here in the 93s? And I'm not asking for his numbers.
Yeah.
But what are you thinking?
So much like I said in the 66s, I think the road is tortuous for each of these guys. And I think they get to their best day through different means and measures. And so we'll talk about Brandon first, because that's my guy. And that's clearly who I have the most familiarity with. His training is going well. He's healthy. He's ready to go. He's confident, and he has the perfect, in my eyes, athlete mindset going into this. We hopped on our strategy call yesterday with Marcellus and installed his game plan, and he literally and figuratively could not possibly care any less about any number. He has zero emotional attachment to whatever number we put on the bar. He said, it is my job to go out and make 9 attempts. And that has been our theme all along. This is a race to 9 lifts. I think you can make a strong case for any 4 of these gentlemen that we mentioned potentially winning. And I think the first person who misses is really putting themselves in a bad spot and behind the 8 ball. So it's almost a situation where if you feel like you're reaching, it might be better to go 2.5 less, early on, for those who can pull, which would be Petrie and Carlos, obviously the 2 biggest pullers. But back to Brandon for a second, he's just got a phenomenal mindset of, I need to go out and make 9 attempts. I don't care what number you put on the bar. I am going to give you honest feedback, and I trust you to play the chess game. And so looking forward to doing that with Brandon. And that's our theme. We have to make 9 lifts. Gustav, without question, I'm putting all the pressure on him, should be the favorite. 895 kilo world record total. He's the guy, recency bias, won Sheffield, all of those things. Pressure's on you, pal. You're the guy. You're up. You haven't won an IPF World Championship. I know that that's a box that you want to check. He cannot hit or use, chips in any of the disciplines. Petrie presumably could possibly in the deadlift. But so Gustav has got to go, 9 for 9 and has to lift well. By the way, shout out to the Swedish coaching team, Carolina Arvidsson, and of course, Alexander Eriksson, his own personal coach, phenomenal coaching staff. So I'm looking forward to locking horns with them. I told Brandon yesterday, this is as much of a competition for me coaching against two people that I really look up to and hold in a very high regard. So I'm looking forward to coaching against them. But yeah, Gustav has to make lifts. He only makes 21% of his third deadlifts. So that would raise my eyebrows a little bit. Clearly at Sheffield, he had more in each discipline. So I think that 895, if we're being fair, could easily tip over 900. I mean, he could have, he didn't need it at Sheffield. He took what he needed, and that was smart. We've got the big mock meet, gym total, whatever you want to call it, that we had from Emil back in February. I don't know what his body weight was. But clearly he's getting better. He, again, under the tutelage of Kedrick Kwan. So, again, only makes 20% of his third pulls. So that raises an eyebrow. This is a guy who has to build his total, on the front end. And he's going to be by far, because Jonathan Keiko is not around, by far the biggest bencher. Will he take a shot at the world record bench? I don't know. He's been consistently hitting about 235 kilos in training after squatting. So that's a plus. It looks like his bench is trending up, but that's 10.5 away, or actually 11 away from setting a world record in the bench. So will he risk, will he make that calculus and say, in order for me to be relevant, in order for me to take a strategic advantage, do I reach on my bench and try to take the world record? The world record's 245.5. So will he try to put 246 on the bar for the third attempt? I don't know. If he does, he's got to have a 235 or a 237.5 second attempt, and that's an awfully big second attempt. So I don't know. If I were him, I probably would not shoot for the world record, but I'm not his coach. And then, of course, we've got Carlos Peterson Griffith, where if there's one lifter who has a one lift liability, it's Carlos, and it's his bench. Now, I will say this in Carlos's favor. That 190 kilo bench press that he missed at Sheffield was literally by the skin of his teeth. That was not a bad attempt call. He missed that at about 7/8 of lockout. I mean, he was literally right there on the edge. So I don't think that was a bad attempt call. I can only imagine he's been working on his bench. So let's just say if he had 187.5 that day, I'm sure he's above 190 now. And clearly his squat is just on a whole nother level now, doubling 325. Clearly, I would assume he's going to shoot for the world record in the squat, right? Take back the world record from Gavin Aiden. All right. So he should have a chip available there. And then we all saw his 370 kilo deadlift. So, I mean, Carlos, don't sleep on Carlos. I mean, he's absolutely, I believe, up to the task. He just has to make more lifts. He only makes 6 attempts, and his third deadlift, oh, by the way, he only makes 16% of his third pulls. So he can't afford to miss a third pull. None of these guys can. Brandon makes 41% of his third deadlifts, and that's the best percentage of third deadlift makes. And that's still below 50, right? I mean, Roy's laughing. That's still below a 50% hit rate. So again, the sermon, at least that we've been preaching on our end, is we've got to make 9 lifts. I think this is a race to 9 attempts. And you have to be pragmatic and strategic and downright surgical with your attempt selection to put yourself in a position at the end there with, presumably, again, as I said, Petrie and Carlos having the final say there with those last deadlifts where they can kind of finagle themselves in a position. And so it's, I think for all these guys, clearly they want to win, but as we've been saying, it's podium or bust. And so one of these 4 guys is going to be off the podium. That's just the reality. And if
the same.
Yeah, I mean, that's just what it is. And if, to your point, Ryan, if they start slipping up and making bad selections and poor execution, then Christian becomes relevant. But I just think he's, far enough back that if these guys do what they're capable of doing, he's probably looking at 4th on the, or 5th on the outside looking in. So if you want me to go ahead and give my picks, I'm going to take, of course, I'm riding with my guy, Team Craft, Brandon Petrie. And first, I'm going to take Gustav in second, and I'm going to take Carlos in third.
Oh,
Yep.
Wow.
And
okay.
look, as we said before, you could easily, I think all of us can make a strong argument in case for that whole deck getting shuffled, right? It's like kind of,
100%.
yeah. I mean, so I don't think there's a wrong pick here, but pressure's on Gustav, man. It's on you, bud.
Eric, this is tough. This is tight. I think maybe did Matt sway you a little towards Petrie, or were you already towards Petrie? But that gave me a little confidence when I heard that. I wanted to throw it to Matt with a battle this close to hear what his thoughts were. What are you thinking?
It definitely. So here's the thing. I'm gonna go with the 6-pack Lapadat wisdom of when it's unclear, you go with the person who's the current, title holder, and that we'll say that's Sheffield in this case, since the world title isn't in play from prior year here between these two gentlemen. Um, and I think Gustav is showing an increasing level of consistency, an increasing level of confidence. I think he's on the rise. Um, and I think I said it before on one of our other shows that if we said who has the highest potential, it's Petrie. But I'm not necessarily still super confident in that based upon Gustav's performance at Sheffield and having a little bit left in there. So not super confident in this, but my number one pick is going to be Gustav. Just kind of, I think he's on a streak right now and he's got a lot of things in his favor. I will say not having any potential chips in play is less than ideal, but that's also one way to look at that is you're just good at all three lifts, right? So, um, is it a feature or a bug? We'll see. So second, I do have Petrie. And I think it's not a firm decision in any of these spots. I will say the only new piece of information I want to bring to the table, and this is critical, is that Emil Krastev, my Bulgarian bodybuilding brother from another mother, has arguably beat me in both a side chest and a side tricep. Now we weren't necessarily wearing the same degree of tightness in our
Oh, here we
shirts,
go. Oh, here it is.
but even I will give him at least maybe a split decision in his favor. So that's why he's on the podium for me in third place is those poses looking so strong. No, but in all seriousness, I think he Carlos is on the rise. Emil has something to prove, and he's coming back. And I think he's already shown us in his training that he's got the juice. And I know he's working with Kedrick. I have a lot of confidence in Kedrick's capability and Emil's dedication and their willingness to do what's necessary. And I think he's going to make smart decisions. I think both of them are going to make smart decisions. And I think Carlos is, if he would post his bench, if he could show me right now, yeah, I can bench 190, I might be a different story. Because he benches 190 and we see how his squat and deadlift are going, and we've got a potential 900 total there, which is bonkers considering his improvements as of late. So I think if everybody hits and goes 9 for 9 and hits their potential, you got a 900 podium, which is insane. But I don't think it's going to play out that way. It rarely does, especially at Worlds. And I think there's going to be somebody's going to miss. And I think that really is going to dictate who is on and off the podium. So with very little confidence, I have Gustav, Petrie, and then Emil as my top three, with Carlos just off the podium.
I'm going to throw it to you, Rory. This all reminds me, everybody, jump in on our fantasy league and give us your picks. And see if you could take down us in the fantasy league. And I'll be posting that up in the stories. Sorry, Rory, hop in there, buddy. What are you thinking? What are your picks for the Clash of the 93s?
Look, Eric's additional information about Emil having a better side tricep is like what's really. I'm really only like a tiny bit more than 25% confident in my picks, and given that there's 4 men here, that's like not particularly confident, right? But I find it really hard to bet against the current Sheffield champion. And Matt did say that Gustav only makes 21% of his third deadlifts. But of the last 2 meets that I have a full score sheet for, he's also done 2 in the last 12 months that I only have the final results for, not the full score sheet. He made both of his third attempts on those 2 meets.
Yep.
So although his total average hit rate is frankly not spectacular, particularly on that third deadlift, he seems to be getting better over time. And I keep a mental list, not a physical list, of meet day coaches that if they're lining up with an athlete that one of my athletes is going against, I'm like, oh, this is a problem. Carolina Arvidsson is one of those coaches. Matt is also one of those coaches. So I've got Gustav in first place. In the second place, I have Brandon Petrie. And one of the reasons that I don't have him ahead of Gustav is I believe that this is the first time he's competed out of the United States. And that, like, he's an excellent athlete. He is incredibly strong. I have a lot of faith in his potential. But that adds quite a large degree of, frankly, error to this situation. Gustav travels constantly. He also doesn't have to travel very far for this particular meet. And so that additional unconfidence, that additional variable that Brandon hasn't dealt with before is going to play a role. Some people deal with that really, really well. Like, for example, Tim Monagatti, I think, is an example of people who deal with that really well. He just seems to not get affected at all by travel. Whereas some people, it completely knocks them for a loop. And we just don't know what the case is going to be for Brandon yet. And then finally, in third place, I have Emil. And there's a couple of reasons that I am putting him ahead of Carlos, but it's not because I think Carlos is doing poorly. Like, I'm actually hoping that we're going to see about a 900 from Carlos. And I think that might not be enough to get him on the podium, which is insane. But Emil's training is just looking amazing. I've seen he posts most of his training, which I think is a little bit unusual for some of these men as well. And it sort of just gives a high degree of confidence that he is executing to a reasonably high standard. It seems if he's not at his peak, he's at least reasonably close to it. And again, with the travel factor, like what is it, 2 hours from Bulgaria to Lithuania? Like this is basically in his hometown.
Okay, so I'm actually going to lean towards Brandon Petrie in the gold medal. I'll tell you why. I think it's going to be an absolutely super tight race. Brennan is going to have the last pull between the two of them, and it might be a chip as well. There's two big check. When it comes to powerlifting, pulling last in a tight battle is a huge advantage. Huge advantage. And if you can have a chip, my goodness, what are we talking about here? A chip on the last pull. That's great. That's phenomenal. Now, on the day of, if he ends up having, any other, whatever his body would be, slightly less body weight, whatever, I mean, that's just all the checks are starting to go into his favor. But there's two coming in that he's got. Two major ones. Now, on top, I know Sweden's got great coaching. Brennan's got Matt Gary, who's the GOAT. It just leans me towards, in a close, super close battle, I'm going to ask you those questions. I'm going to ask who's pulling last. Is there a chip on that last pull? And who's handling you? I know those three before we go in. After that, we could talk about lot numbers. We could talk about body weight, etc. If all those start going in Brandon's favor, it's still super tight, but you're just really collecting all of these extra little pieces to be in your favor in a super tight battle. So I am going to go Brandon because of that. But like you gentlemen, maybe not Matt, but like you and Rory, Eric, I'm not super confident in this. Between Brennan and Gustav, this is about as tight as it gets. This is as tight as they come between these two gentlemen. And I'm going to take Emil Krastev for bronze. So Gustav's my silver. I'll take Emil Krastev for bronze. The reason why bronze, when talking about Carlos, I haven't seen enough of his bench. I know the deadlift is up. I know the squat is up. I'm going to need to see all three. I'm going to bump you past a guy like Emil. But if you tell me he bumps past Emil, and I throw my hands up, be like, oh my God, what a crazy upset. My friend Carlos could take a silver medal. Any of these guys could freaking win it. All of the gentlemen we're really talking about can go 900 kilos. And I suspect around 900 to 910 is going to win this. I think all of these gentlemen could do that. So take all that. Hats off to all of them. I wouldn't be shocked if any one of them win. I'll go with Emil. The reason why Emil in bronze and not higher, 906, phenomenal. That's in February. He hasn't repeated that. I'm wondering if he peaked earlier in February. I don't know what his body weight was at, etc. Now that the body weight's down, getting a little closer, 85 training week total, not all in one day. He's still strong. I just don't know if it's all going to come together. like that. So I got him in the bronze, and Carlos just off podium. But God, I don't know how this is going to. I promise you, I don't know how this is going to go. Do not bet money on this one, ladies and gentlemen. This is crazy.
I just want to add one thing also, Ryan. I think the total, this elusive 900 kilo total just happened, particularly at this meet, we're in a short flight, 8 lifters. It needs to just happen organically, right? Just let it come to you. The second that's another message that I've been preaching to this team, both on the men's side and the women's side. Do not chase numbers. Aggressively pursue a successful outcome, and that looks different for each person, but in this case, aggressively pursue victory. And process, we talk about that all the time, process orientation over outcome orientation and so on and so forth, and that's a whole tangent, but you cannot chase a number here. You have to let the total come to you organically. It'll just happen. If it's meant to happen, it'll happen that you'll go over 900. And so, and to your point, the last thing I'll add is just the thing with Emil is he's going to be finished deadlifting first. So that's why he needs to build a big subtotal with that bench and then just try to hang on for dear life, because he's going to be finished deadlifting. And then the other 3 guys are going to be able to pick their spots. And so that's a tough position to be in for a guy who builds his kilos on the front end and not the back end. And so, that's the reason that I put Emil off the podium.
Quick question for you fellas. How many 93s go 900 and up? Eric?
2.
Rory?
They're
Eric
all
said 2, by the
capable
way.
of it, but I'm saying 2 as well. I'm saying first and second go sort of 900 to 905. Third and fourth just under 900.
Matt?
2.
I think 2 as well. I think first and second, and that's it. Quick question about the 70, going back to the 66s, sorry. How many of them go 700 and up? Eric?
That's tough. I'll say 2 as well.
Rory?
3. I'm saying 3 go 700 and up.
Matt?
2.5. I knew Eric would like that. I'll go with 2 as well. Just because the likelihood of people to start missing lifts and so forth at the end when they're reaching, and people typically make fewer than 50% of their deadlifts. That's the average for everybody, regardless. So I'll say 2. And the last thing, or go ahead, Ryan, if you're going to pick yours, and then I was going to.
I was just going to say, I'm going to blow all your guys' socks right off. I'm saying 5.
5 people. Wow.
And I said I was on page with you guys with 93s. I said only 2.
Yeah.
So it's not like, oh, Ryan, always hyperbolic. Just on the 66s, I think I'm looking at it different. I think Jonathan, Penna, Joseph Jordan, Kyoto, and Kasim Sand, they've all done it, by the way. Like, this isn't, they've all done that and more. Like, this isn't just,
Yep.
Some of them done it multiple times. 5 of those guys, those 5 have all done 700 and up before, and I think they'll do it again. But anyways, okay.
And at 93s, we're going to have a first-time IPF World Champion. Gustav and Emil have both placed second. Clearly, this is Petrie's first. This is so we're going to have a brand new IPF World Champion. And I think what also needs to come into the calculus of these 4 guys, these heavy hitters, if you will, if it's out of reach, you need to protect the podium. You need to be smart and right, because of the whole World Games narrative. So that's something that as a coach you can flip the switch and turn and pivot. As a lifter, freaking hard it would be. Look at Brennan. I just said I'm picked him for gold. How hard it would be going into this world champion. I'm going to be a world champion. Everything in your mind, and on the day finding out, hey, we're going to scrap it out we got to defend bronze. Defend bronze, my friend. 4 of you guys can go 900. Defending bronze is, we're defending bronze right now. And this is where the Matt Gary is unemotionally attached, like to a degree. I know he's still emotionally attached, but you'll be like, yes, no, we pivot quick. But it'll depend on how does that lifter react once they're out of the gold medal.
Do the wheels really just fall right the hell off? Now World Games is gone. And if you thought you were going to be a world champion this whole time and you find out around deadlifts, oh my God, I have to defend bronze. And that can happen in 93s and 66s.
And to Matt's earlier point, these sessions are going to be fast, right? Like
Yep.
we're going to
Very
have
fast.
8 lifters. We've got the A team spotter and loaders. You might have 6 minutes between attempts, right?
That's right.
Like the actual. Not only do you have to switch on the day from I'm going to be a world champion to I have to fight off this other guy for third place to even be on the podium. You might have to do that in 6 minutes flat.
Mm-hmm. And at least with my athletes, we have had these conversations. We have navigated all of that. That's standard operating procedure on our strategy calls is we discuss all of these things when we are level-headed, when we are, rationally thinking, unemotional, the adrenaline's not pumping, the lights aren't on, we're not overseas, we're here, we're comfy. We have all of these conversations so that we have plays called. We already have the play called, If X, then Y. That's it. We go right to the play sheet. We've already installed a plan to navigate. We've got a contingency plan for just about every outcome.
The time to make that decision is today, not in the moment when you have adrenaline, 1,000 milligrams of caffeine,
that's right.
paparazzi, the whole shebang.
Yep. Let's move into the 105s, gentlemen. And speaking of first times, Ashton Rauska making his first IPF Worlds appearance in the Open. I know he did it as, I believe, a sub-junior back in the day, but he's in the Open. He's here, long awaited. My God, how long have I been waiting for Ashton to come to IPF Worlds? And here we are, and he's clashing no less with Anatoly Novopismani from Ukraine, multiple-time world champion, multiple-time world's best lifter, as well as former world champion Emil Norling from Sweden is in the mix. I see Walter from Canada, Coco from France. It's a star-studded, as well as Sanchez Dillon from Great Britain. He's not in a hunt to grab the world title and maybe not onto the podium, kind of depends on the day, but he's the one that loaded up at Arnold UK, 411 kilos, and he's a 105. The biggest deadlift in IPF history, loaded it up, got it past his knees. And I talked to him in the DMs, and as long as he's 100% healthy, expect him to load it back up again. My God, will the roof cave in if he actually gets the biggest deadlift in history as a 105. And he's pulling conventional, so the internet will explode as well. He'll be, I can't wait to see it. It's going to be phenomenal. But anyways, Ashton, he was on the podcast. It's not an all-time high peaking, but he's doing good. Good enough he thinks that he's going to win. I seen him hit a 750-pound double on deadlift, a 760-pound squat double. This is roughly 6 weeks out. He's not posting a whole heck of a lot. And on the podcast, he's saying, training's going good. It's not absolutely bonkers amazing. He's not like previously when he's on the podcast saying, I'm going to destroy everybody, etc. But does he have to be? Looking at Anatoly's best is 940. I think he's nominated with 943. 940 is the world record. Looking at Anatoly's lifts, I seen him do a 210 kilo double on bench. He's benched 227.5. I see him squat 327.5 double. This is around 6 weeks out from comp. Obviously, he squatted 363. I don't know what to glean from all of his lifts. I know injuries have plagued him a lot this year. Nothing I've seen on social media, and he doesn't post a lot, but nothing I've seen would lead me to believe we're going to have a performance greatly improved. I'm not even sure if we'll get his best at 940. Maybe. I know at Sheffield he came in injured, and he was one deadlift off of equaling or just breaking his world record 940, and he's badly injured. So he's the type of guy that levels up when competition rolls around. No shit, huh? Multiple-time world champion, best lifter. You'd expect that, right? The guy's a tiger. No kidding. But this is Ashton. Ashton's top end. I mean, Anatoly, if he's going to pull off the miracle, we can't be having talks of maybe. You got to be 100%. You got to be 110% past your previous best. And Anatoly, in my mind's eye, from what I see, is a maybe hitting his previous best of 940. maybe he's got more that he's not posting up. So that's my 1 and 2 is Ashton and Anatoly. I'll go first this time, fellas. With the tougher divisions, I like to hear you guys take and then see if it sways my opinion. Emil Norling, I'm going to take him in my bronze medal. Emil nominated with 905, but so here's the thing with Emil. He's hit a 325 squat. I've seen him hit 290 for a double. This is around 2 weeks out. Not amazing. I don't know. Does that put you up for a 325? I don't know. He did 315 kilos about 4 weeks out. Again, 325 in comp, 315 around 4 weeks out. Okay. I haven't seen much bench and dead shown, actually none at all. He has done 928.5 kilos. That should be good for the bronze medal. 928.5 should just about do that for the bronze medal and hold off everybody else. That's the good side of Emil. Here's the bad side. His totals have dropped every single time since, all the way down to 887. As a matter of fact, his most recent outing was 880 kilos. I'm not sure what's going on. Injuries plagued him, life's popped up, or he's going to be right back at it. I can't tell from his posts. He's not doing any benches, any deadlifts, and his squat is okay for him. It's phenomenal, but for him, it's okay. If Emil is at 928.5, it's not even a conversation. As a matter of fact, if Emil is 928.5 and maybe a little better, he's a young guy, he could improve upon. Anatoly not being 100%, he could take Anatoly. He has. I think he's like 3-0 against Anatoly at the European Championship. He keeps whooping Anatoly at the Euros for some reason. Hasn't got him at the Worlds yet. Maybe he does this time. If he's at 100%. I don't know though, fellas. I'm not seeing enough to completely tell. Now, in terms of Coco, I seen him do 325 for a squat. He's nominated with 327.5. He's right there on depth. He always is. He's a big, huge, tall 105. So it's kind of an awkward thing to see him squat down to depth. He'll be right on that money, though. I seen him. He's got a big deadlift, nominated with 350, but I seen him double 325, albeit with straps. But he said he was chasing 400 kilos. I don't know. It's hard to tell when you got straps, but maybe. It's a contentious thing with his lifts if they get called or not called. But Coco's super strong and he's capable. I don't know where Emil's at. So I'm going to take Emil as a bronze medal because he's done 928.5 and Coco has not come close to a 928.5. But Coco is better than his nominated total. He's done more. He's done 895, let alone the 885. And he's capable of going into the 900s. I'm just not sure. And I would love to see what Sanchez does. And in terms of Abdullah Muhammad, I think as long as Emil is at the top end, he should be able to handle Abdullah. But if he's not, and I don't know where he is, this is guesswork on my end when it comes to, and I haven't seen Abdullah's training at all. I know he's done 920. I don't know where he's at all. So outside of this, I'm pretty confident Ashton, Anatoly, less confident from what I'm seeing, and then Emil, and it just turns into a bit of a shit show. I don't know what to glean from it. Rory, help me out here, man. What are you seeing?
I actually don't think Abdullah has done 920. The best I can actually find for him is 902.5 and a recent DQ. Has anyone actually seen him do 920?
No.
Oh, maybe he hasn't.
And that is, I mean, it won't affect him being in the A group,
No.
Rory, but yeah, I'll bring that up at the technical meeting. But
yeah,
it's
so,
not going to.
Yeah, I believe that is an inflated inflated nomination.
Agreed.
So for those who don't know, at the technical meeting, you can argue about these things, and it can sometimes change who ends up in the A flight and things like that. But yeah, so I don't believe Abdullah has actually done 920. I believe that his actual best is 902.5. Right. So I also have Emil in number 3. I think he's looking okay, not spectacular, but just like okay. And given he is Emil Norling, okay, I think is probably enough to secure bronze. And I suspect that, again, given it's a World Games year and that bronze is actually meaningful, he will probably take that. And I think he'll be happy to get that and then happy to go to the World Games. I'm not super confident in my top 2 picks, but I think I'm going Ashton 2, Anatoly 1.
my
Though
gosh.
I'm like 51-49 on that. So I'm willing to have my mind changed about that. Anatoly's just a dog. And like he's won at the World Championships a bunch. There's been several times that I've said, "Hey, Anatoly's injured. Like he's squats down in training." Man, was it Worlds last year? He didn't squat over. He squatted like 280 for a double before Worlds, and then squatted 360 at Worlds or something. Like Anatoly is an absolute dog. There's Ashton is probably stronger by a little bit, but I think Anatoly has fewer factors, like sort of like external factors affecting him at the moment, and I find it really hard to argue against the many-time best lifter at IPF Worlds. And then number two, Ashton.
The one thing, like Ashton has total 20 kilos more, but I get what you're saying domestically, blah, 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 all the other factors. That's still a pretty big upset pick there, Rory. The thing with Anatoly,
I mean, 20 kilos at this end is potentially a single squat, right? Or potentially a single deadlift. Heck, in some cases, it could be a single bench, right?
Yeah, it's a bad day. No, like I'm not saying, like, believe me, I got tons of respect for Anatoly. This is by no means what I would think of smoke show. The only thing is, too, Anatoly hasn't. I don't know about his training, but I don't know. Like freaking, I thought this was Sheffield, and he did a lot better than I thought he would at Sheffield. Also, just want to say about Abdullah. Thank you for the note on Roy about 902.5. Interesting though, Emil, is that good enough to beat Emil these days? Emil hasn't gone over 900 in a while. And Coco hasn't gone over 900. He's still Abdullah with only 902.5. And if he bumps that up only 5 kilos or whatever, he might take bronze. I'm taking Emil. I'm taking Emil for my bronze. But frig, man, what is going on? Hopefully my man turned it around. Eric, what's going on, man?
Yeah, this is I think I'm actually very curious to see what I know. Matt isn't making like picks based upon telling us any numbers, but he will tell us the attitude of the lifter. And I think that's going to be really important here for Ashton. So I'm willing to be swayed here. Actually, I'm willing to be more confident in my picks here because I actually do have Ashton in first. Ashton is not, I mean, people see him as, oh, he hasn't competed overseas. He has. He's gone to Korea. He's competed. He has competed in the earlier part of his career. He's been at this for a long time. He started lifting at a very young age. He's competed at a high level. He's been in some very tough fights within the domestic states. And he's done so. I would say he's a very level-headed lifter, also knows how to harness his passion. And he does some things a little unconventionally in terms of, no pun intended, switching back and forth between conventional and sumo. But
nice.
He takes, thank you. He also takes big jumps. So there's a potential volatility there, but it'll be interesting to see how that plays out with Mr. Gary at the reins. But at the same time, yeah, Anatoly, I mean, he hasn't lost a world championship since he was 20. And he did so, I think he placed fourth, but he was, again, 20. He's won every world championships he's done since 2019. And Rory was being very generous, saying he doesn't have a lot of external factors, besides a war that he's dealing with and somehow totaling 925 when he's injured is pretty impressive at Sheffield. But I have not seen anything to indicate to me that he has another 15 kilos hanging out that he can pull out of his pocket and go over the best he's recorded in competition yet. Right. At Malta, when he went 940, there was a little bit of room, but there was not a lot when I watched that. So I think if Ashton plays it smart and has a decent day, he's going to have the first spot locked up. And he has done in the 960s under 105. So I think clearly he has the capability. And I think based upon the coaching staff, I'm going to pick Ashton. And then I am also going to go with Anatoly in second. And then I'm going to go with Anatoly in second. Then I'm also going to choose Emil Norling based upon the 20 kilo over what's been recorded for Abdullah and the fact that I haven't seen anything to indicate that Emil is so far down to not be able to hit something in the nines. and that other people are so far up from where they have, like Coco, that they're going to be into the nines. So I'm only really confident and not super confident in 1 and 2. And I'm like 60-40 there. But I think that's the way it's going to play out.
Good point about Ashton. I mean, I just talked to him on the podcast, and yeah, people keep forgetting, and I forget sometimes too. Yeah, he went to South Korea, way on the other side of the world, brutal.
Yep.
And he went there not exhibition lifting, having fun. He battled Keenan in a crazy battle where they went like 950 plus. He went all the way. Let's take a look right here. I have his
And his junior world
Ashton-
championship was in Hungary in 2014. And don't forget, he's in the United States military and travels all over the place all the time. So that's, in my mind's eye, a non-factor.
so he went to South Korea.
Yep.
He went to South Korea. He weighed 103.7, so he's under 105. South Korea, he did 947.5 against Keenan, who won on body weight. So he was in a battle too. So he traveled to the other side of the world, weighed under 105, and had a crazy battle and had to win on body weight because it went right down. He's a dog. Honestly, I think he's more tested than you might think for a guy who's doing his first worlds. You know what I mean? He's sneaky test. And he battled Bob and beat him head to head, like Bob Matthews, who we'll talk about in a second when we jump up to 120s. So good picks. Matt, what are you thinking here? Obviously, you got Ashton, but what are you thinking here? And I'm going to tell you something about Emil Norling. We talk about he should be good for over 900. It's been a minute since he went over 900, though. I don't know what the heck's going on. I kind of want to talk to him. If he's 100%, this isn't even a conversation. If he's 100% and Emil's not, Anatoly's not. I mean, he's beat Anatoly before. He's right up in there. He's right up in there with everybody, probably but Ashton. But I don't know. What do you think, buddy?
I'm going to steal a line from Rory. And so I'm going to pick Emil in third because coaching. If you're going to ask me who's got the coaches on their side, I like Team Sweden versus Team Libya. So that's an easy pick for me. So, and I don't believe in that 920 total. As Rory said, 902.5 is all the data that I'm able to find. Plus, Mr. Norling hits 75% of his third deadlifts. So excellent conventional stance deadlifter. And then clearly moving on to 1 and 2. That's going to be a lot of fun. We're looking forward to it. And Ashton is up to the task. He is supremely confident. He keeps saying, I'll settle for nothing less. There is no other person on this national team that I want to win an IPF World Championship more than Ashton. And the reason that I say that is because it is a box that has remained unchecked for him for a very long time. And many times, or at least, well, I say many times, but I know for a fact at least one time, when he won USAPL Nationals in 2017 and that epic battle with against Ellis McLean, as you'll recall, Ryan, Susie, my wife Susie, was the head coach of the national team that year, and he had to turn down a slot because of military obligation. And it's just, this guy is salt of the earth and as good as they come. Just love him, his principles, his values, what he stands for, just a rock star human being. And oh, by the way, he is objectively the strongest man in the room. And oh, by the way, he is the strongest deadlifter in the room. So for those two reasons, and we are going to lean into those strengths. This is going to be fun in the squat because the two of them have, this is Anatoly's world record squat at 363 kilos. So this is going to come down to lot number. And we're going to make some strategic decisions there on the front end early on in the squat. Ukrainians are going to do Ukrainian things, and when it comes to coaching, they tend to be on the conservative side, and that's good. I don't mean that as a criticism; that's a compliment. I don't see them taking more than 363 and a half, and at most 365.5. And so, from a strategic standpoint on our end, we'll lean into that if we have lot number advantage. And so then, the question becomes, is Anatoly going to take a shot at the world record in the bench? Because currently, I believe the world record in the bench at 105 is 233 and a half. And so Anatoly, I believe he's done 232 and a half. And so he's taken a shot at the world record before and missed it. So if his bench is in top form, he may try to snag another, half kilo or kilo there. But then it comes down to the deadlift, and Ashton clearly has that ace card up his sleeve where Anatoly's you know, Anatoly's best deadlift is 350, 2.5. So even if you give him 2.5, maybe 5 kilos, Ashton is at a strength level where our second attempt could potentially be more than Anatoly even finishes with. So we're in a wait and see, kind of survey the field, just looking around type situation where we can matter of factly just name our number on the third attempt. So anyway, I 100% picking Ashton Anatoly in second, and I do expect Anatoly to be good and at or around his best, Ryan. I do. I mean, he surprised the heck out of me at Sheffield with as well as he did, considering the circumstances and his injury. I was not anticipating a performance like that, and I can only presume that he's better. And then I've got Emil in third.
Moving on to the 120s, gentlemen. Another newcomer to the IPF World Championships, heavily hyped, Bob Matthews. This is David versus Goliaths, plural. Bob weighing in at 106 at Powerlifting America Nationals. But he's, as Matt would say, the strongest guy in the room. He's nominated with 978.5, big last deadlift at Powerlifting America Nationals. He could probably bump his total up from there. There's talk of who's going to hit 1,000 kilos, but expect that to only be talk if Matt Gary's at the helm, and he is. Matt is going to guide Bob to a title win and not worry about the 1,000 kilo talk. If Bob wants to do that kind of stuff, he could save it for Sheffield. Because if Matt takes Bob to 9 for 9, his top end should be more than 40-something Tony Cliff, Jonah, and ETN, all phenomenal lifters, but it should be more than. However, does stand to reason, talking about Tony Cliff, he took 325 for a triple. That's about 14 weeks out. 345 is his top end. And he hasn't posted a whole heck of a lot. Again, that was 14 weeks out, but he's uber confident. You guys probably seen he sent me the bullshit alarm button for all the bullshit I talk on the podcast. So me picking Bob for gold, I'm sure he's like, Six, be hitting that bullshit. I'll hit that bullshit alarm right now. But God bless Tony Cliff. I don't know why I gave him my address. That was my first problem. Why did I give him my freaking address and my social insurance number as well? I don't know. He's a sly talker. He could talk it out of you. But I'm going to take Tony for silver. I love the fact that Tony Cliff in his 40s, master lifter, doing what he's doing and swinging with the, what is this, the third, fourth wave of lifter. He's been in the game since the early 2000s. It's insane that he's still here and at the World Championships defending his world title, made it to Sheffield. God bless. It's been a hell of a ride with Tony Cliff and powerlifting. I'm going to take Jonah from Germany for my bronze medal pick. Jonah and Etienne from Lebanon have battled back and forth. They're both around the same. Jonah now being nominated with 930.5. He's been on the podcast, relatively low RPE. He's pretty sub-maximal type of lifter and actually does a lot of a bodybuilding style as well. Tons of accessory work, low RPE in terms of his lifts. But one lift that he does push is that bench press. I seen him bench 250 kilos and it looked relatively smooth. He's done 253. So the world record is a possibility for a chip in his favor, which might help. Of course, it's a World Games year, so the third position is going to be really tough. You also have Mohamed Sahad from Algeria, former world silver medalist in 2023 and former world champion in 2020, as well as Indy from Great Britain. He said, well, he's obviously got the deadlift world record at 395.5, but chipping the record is not going to be enough for him to satiate his appetite. He wants 400 kilos to go down. I'm excited to see what Indy ends up pulling. He can go all in. I don't know if it's going to shake up enough that he ends up on the podium, but he'll be close enough. He's definitely in the conversation. And if anybody starts missing, or even just misses once, I mean, he's within 5 kilos. That's nothing. This after Tony making it on the podium, grabbing a bronze medal and going to the World Games is extremely tight. I'm not sure how you fellas see this going. Again, I've I've looked at the numbers. I've looked at their lifts. Some of them don't post that much, so that doesn't always help. And I could be talk either way. But I'm going to take Jonah for bronze. He's young. He's got a lot of momentum on his side. But if you told me Etienne's going to win this battle, or you told me Indy's going to win that battle, or you told me the former world champ Muhammad's going to take it, I could be talked into any of those gentlemen taking that bronze medal in the world game slot. But I'll take Bob and then the legend Tony Cliff. And Bob, I'm excited to see what he's going to do because another thing, gentlemen, he's planning on, if he goes to Sheffield and wins, dropping down to 105. He doesn't give a shit what he does to the world record at Worlds.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. If he can blow it up, he's going to blow it up. Again, Matt Gary's going to guide him to a win. And you swing to blow something up and you start missing, Tony Cliff is going to eat your food. He's a veteran, and Matt's not going to let that happen. So anyways, Rory, what are you thinking?
Look, first of all, I know that some people are talking 1,000 kilograms, 4 digits, huge milestone. It's not happening this week. It's the wrong time. It's the wrong conditions. Like Matt said earlier, if it happens organically, if you make good decisions and along the way you happen to cross 1,000, cool, fantastic. If you make decisions to hit 1,000, you're going to swing and you're going to miss, and that may be enough to lose position under some circumstances. So no one's hitting 1,000. However, Ryan, you may have just talked me out of my third place pick. I had originally had Indiraj as my third place pick. He's nominated in sixth, but only 5.5 kilos behind the current third nomination, which is Etienne. And he just has a monster deadlift, and that's just such a huge advantage. And when I say a monster deadlift, like, he's got like 20 kilos on most of these guys, like 20 kilos on like the next tier of guys, and like 30 or 40 on most of them. Like, it is just ridiculous. However, when you said he's now hunting 400, I suddenly think that maybe that's the wrong decision, and that maybe what he should be doing instead, at the risk of issuing advice over a podcast, maybe what he should be doing instead is loading what he needs to load to move into third, right, getting picked for the World Games, and pulling 400 at the World Games or something like that. And I think that would be really cool. And I think that probably is maybe a slightly better long-term play than hunting 400 here now today. Not today, this week. You know what I mean? So anyway, I've got Bob in first. I think it's just a little bit of a runaway. He's got a good lead. He's very light, which means that he's not cutting. He's potentially eating up into this, though I don't think he does that typically. Tony, fantastic lifter. I just don't see him scraping another 20, 25 kilos. And that would be to catch where Bob was at his last meet. And it does seem like his training is going really well. So I'm going Bob, Tony, Indy if he makes good decisions, but I'm a little bit less confident about that now after Ryan's story from before.
Well, listen, I think come the day of, the British staff is not going to load up more than he needs to take a bronze, even if he whatever. They're going to put their hand on their shoulder. And this is what he's saying now. And I think also the day of is going to be, yeah, fine, whatever. They're like, son, you can load it up.
It's a little bit on the dynamic between the athlete and the coaches as well, because like not every country runs that dynamic exactly the same way. That dynamic is a little bit different, even within the same country, between different coaches and different athletes. So there's definitely some countries where the coach would say, no, absolutely not, we're doing it my way. There's some countries where it would be completely up to the athlete and the coach is just facilitating. And then there's the entire spectrum in between, right? So I'm not exactly sure what that particular dynamic is going to be like.
Also, he might need 400 to take bronze.
He may need 400 anyway. Yeah, he may need 400 anyway.
What do you think, Eric?
Yeah, you guys kind of just said some of the stuff I was going to say. Is first, being stoked because you smoked 390 on Instagram and saying, screw it, I can blow 400 away, is not necessarily someone in a game planning meet with their coach saying that's the plan. I think that's just, hey, I'm really happy with how my deadlifts are going, a week out. And absolutely in a World Games year like this, and considering where he is in the nominations and what he would need to catch what we think is probably going to be the bronze medal spot, I think he might have to even load 400 or more to get there.
Yeah.
So I don't think Indy's an unreasonable pick at all for third. However, and it's very, very tight clustering. My choice is Etienne because he's very, very young, and he's got either probably the third highest deadlift in the whole class. So he's the best deadlifter out of everyone besides Indy who has a shot at going for third. So I think he's probably in the best position to be able to sit and wait and do what he needs to do to pull himself into that spot. So I'm not at all confident in the bronze medal pick. There's a 6 kilo spread between the nominations from third to sixth. Just so that'll be a really interesting fight to see who gets into the bronze position. But I don't really see it shaking out any other way for all the same reasons that everyone else mentioned, for it not being Bob Matthews and Tony Cliff in 1 and 2.
The reason why I didn't have I could easily pick Etienne as well. The reason why I see no posts at all. I'm like, what is going on?
I've found plenty.
What? Okay, Matt, perfect segue, my man. Where'd you see this?
On his Instagram.
What?
In full view. My man has pulled 402.5 and it was clean. So it was perfect.
How old was this though? Is this going back a hot minute?
No, it's not that long ago. Let me see this.
Let me see this.
Let me look at a date. This was now granted this was it. This
is March 22nd. Yeah, so this is right. I seen that, and you're right. Yeah, that's crazy.
Okay. Right. So he pulled 402.5. He squatted 340, and I believe he doubled 220 in the bench. And the benches look good. They look solid. So now again, to be fair, don't know if he was on body weight. And circling back to Rory's point, if you're gonna ask me who I'm gonna favor in terms of coaching staff, I'm gonna take Great Britain's coaching staff over that of Lebanon. And to be fair, I don't know a lot about Lebanon's coaching staff, but seeing the decisions that some of these Middle Eastern countries have made in the past, Algeria and Lebanon and so forth, leave me scratching my head. But I do have Etienne coming in third, and only because of the recent uptick in his training, and he's the youngest with presumably the highest rate of adaptation and ceiling, if you will, or room for growth. Okay, so that's why I'm picking Etienne. But I think Indy is literally right there. I do think that if Indy is going to make that podium, he's going to have to pull over 400 kilos. I mean, there's unquestionably in order to make it. And here's why. And I love Indy, love him, phenomenal guy. His bench is the liability when compared to the other lifters. So clearly he's got to go 3 for 3 in the bench and just, hold serve. But because he's not a big bencher, he's going to have to load up. And because he'll be in such a deficit there, he's going to have to pull over 400. And I'm assuming Etienne is going to pull over 400 as well. So I think, and again, that's where the coaching comes into play, right? You want the athlete to just shelve their ego and shelve their, bravado, if you will, in the moment, for the understanding that I'm trying to make it onto the podium and get a World Games slot. And I do suspect that Indy will be willing and ready to do that. And that with Paul Marsh at the helm making good decisions, I would suspect that they would do that. I just think that this kid, Etienne, man, he's got so much more on the bench, and his squat, he did 340 in training comfortably at like an RPE 7-ish. I mean, it was just with plenty of room to spare. So I suspect that 926 total of his is going to get blown out of the water. And I just don't know if India's made up enough ground. I mean, his squat looks like it's on the come up. The deadlift clearly 400 plus capability. I just don't know where his bench is and if that's going to be too much. So I've got Etienne in third, and then the legend, obviously Tony Cliff, securely in second place. Love Tony. Coached against Tony in 2013 in Russia at IPF Classic Worlds back then. So I've known Tony for quite a long time. Love him. Fantastic guy, legend. Deserves all the accolades. But is just, don't feel like he's going to have enough to match Bob Matthews. And I think it was Mark Twain who was quoted with saying, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog. Well, this is a perfect example, because you've got a guy who's coming in, who's naturally probably between a 105 and a 110 kilo guy. So we're going to have body weight on our advantage. And oh, by the way, he is objectively the strongest man in the room. And so, Bob is up to the challenge. He's confident, and just the team craftsmanship, the way that the majority, I don't want to speak for all of their lifters, but a lot of their lifters, the way that Marcellus schedules their training is their heaviest lifts come in a block away from the competition, like 2 blocks out, and then they deload and then they build back into the meet. So that's why you've seen the majority of Ashton's biggest lifts and Bob's biggest lifts coming, 3, 4, 5 weeks ago, and not, just in recent times. So some people get on that recency bias train and, they look and it's kind of like, what have you done for me lately in training? But I've got Bob securely in first. And again, once again, to Rory's point, if the 1,000 kilos happens organically, it happens, but we're not chasing 1,000 kilos. We are aggressively chasing victory.
The thing with Bob, he hasn't posted much, period, to tell you the truth, for Bob, which I'm not sure what's going on there. I think everything's all good. I mean, Bob's got quite the lead, but he hasn't been posted a whole heck of a lot. The thing with ETN, I seen the 402.5 and the squat and everything, Matt, that you're referring to, and I think ETN is a crazy high level potential, but all of those lifts are from March, and that's not history. That's not ancient history by any means. But the one thing I'm thinking, and I like he's young, so he's not declined since March, but April, May, June, why haven't you posted? It might not mean anything because some people don't like posting leading into open worlds. Maybe he's like it might not mean anything. But I'm like, and when he left off posting, to your point, 402.5 deadlift, huge squat. It was incredible. I just I don't know. In me saying I don't know, I understand might be exactly what he wants. All the other national teams to be like, I don't freaking know. And we don't. So yeah, I could totally be eating have egg all over my face after this because his lifts in March were phenomenal.
Yeah.
But then what's going on April, May, and then the rest of June? I freaking it's tight. It is super duper tough. This 120s is really good. And to get onto the podium is listen, that bronze medal position, I have no freaking idea.
It'll be a coin toss between Etienne and Diraj, and I could easily be convinced that it's Indy. I don't think Jonah's going to build his total on the front end and then just try to hang on for dear life. His deadlift is so far behind these other players. No disrespect to Jonah. I know that he and Etienne were, razor thin at Junior Worlds, right? So we'll see.
One more note for Lebanon, I know you mean, like in terms of certain nations' coaching staff, I know they have a couple guys in there whom I don't know all their staff or who exactly is going to be at this one, but they had a couple guys who are very much into powerlifting. They listen to the KOTL podcast all the time. They're students of the game of like yourself. And they have won key battles, tight battles at Worlds with ETN himself winning a tight battle at Junior Worlds and Joya at tight battle with Camille at Junior World. So they've been in tight battles and Team Lebanon has won. So it depends though. Like they're not a powerlifting powerhouse like USA or Sweden or whatever that, but I do know they have I don't know who's going to be there for the coaching staff, but they have a couple guys that I've met at Worlds where they're up. I know what you mean with your concern. Certain nations are not up. You see weird things like, did you know you had chip? Did you know you have lot number advantage? Do you know all this stuff? But there is a couple guys on Lebanon that know. I don't know who's going to be there or, if they're there every single day, whatever. So that's interesting. Put a pin in that and see. Let's wrap this up though, gentlemen. We only got one more left. That's the 120 pluses. Surprise, surprise. Let me just throw this out there. I think Jesus Oliveros is going to take this. All right. Jokes aside, that's not a big one, but I think the storyline here, I think Jesus will give us 1,000-pound squat. I think he'll put on a show. He'll get out of there with another world title. His reign of terror continues. He'll be healthy and training. By his posts, he said it's starting to come around again. I know he's been dealing with some issues here and there, and he said, I'm starting to feel it again. Even Jesus, not 100%, is going to be my favorite to win this. I think he's the strongest powerlifter walking the earth today and probably of all time. But there is a storyline here with Timur from and hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, from Georgia. I don't know if you fellas been seeing this. I've been reposting. Squatted 421, and it was the depth for me. Pulled 405. I haven't seen any bench at all from this man, but he has benched 247.5. So he's got a bench on him. It's not crazy like Jesus and Jesus' top end, but he's got a bench. But my goodness, that squat now, his nominated total is 1063.5. I don't think he's going to get to 1,100 kilos at Worlds, and we're moving at a very fast pace at the World Championship. Very difficult for these big men. But quick question here, because I don't think we're in too. We'll talk about the bronze medal is the biggest dispute, but I think we all are in agreement with gold and silver. But in terms of those performances, when can we expect Timur to enter the 1,100 kilo club? What kind of timeline are we looking at? Eric?
Soon. He's younger than Jesus. I think it is going to be a challenge in any fast-paced flight for a super heavyweight with the potential to do that. But I wouldn't be surprised if by next year we don't see Timur there as long as he stays healthy.
Yeah, I think I'll throw in my ideas out there. I think probably next Euros next year as well. He'll be at the 1,100 kilo club, which is freaking insane. Now we're getting relatively close to Jesus. And he's 3 years younger than Jesus. He's a kid. Sorry, go ahead, Matt.
I was just going to say if he had a 40 kilo jump in total in roughly 3.5 months time. And so, and with the lifts that he's hitting in training, and oh, by the way, his bench went up 10 kilos in the last 3 meets. So 3 meets ago, he was benching 227, then he benched 237.5, and then 247. And oh, by the way, and I know that Eric likes data, he also increased 4 kilos in body weight at each of those meets. And so that, I'm sure, plays into one of the reasons why his bench has increased by leaps and bounds. So let's just give him another 10 kilos. Let's just say that his body weight is up another 3 or 4 kilos coming into this meet. And even if we add, even if we were to give him a 257.5 kilo bench, maybe give him the squat that he missed at Europeans. He missed 430 on a final attempt. He's coming in just under, I'm thinking high 1080s, 1090-ish if he makes his lifts and he executes well. But again, to your point, and I'm sure is the opinion of the panel, these 8-lifter flights are just killing these big guys. And it's good. This is going to be moving at breakneck speed, and similarly with on the women's side with the 84 plus. I mean, great session, great lifters on both sides here, but it's just moving so fast. It is not conducive to the highest levels of performance, and for that reason, I do not think he's going to hit 1,100. But I think he could later this year if he did a meet toward the end of the year, and if not at the end of the year, surely next year. And the beauty of it is that Jesus on a bad day can go 1,100 plus. So that makes the picks rather easy from where I'm sitting.
Well, then I think we're all in agreement it's coming. It's around the corner. Rory, can he establish himself as an actual threat to Jesus Oliveira in a couple of years' time?
I would say, yeah, probably. Like it's not going to be this year, right? Like I think my assessment is probably about a 1085, which I think is very similar to what Matt just said for this meet. But at the rate of progression that he's at, like if he could do that a second time, and I will say that he is still about 20 kilos lighter than Jesus. And so like he can continue to pack on body weight if he decides that that's what's necessary to continue getting stronger. And so like give it another 12 months and we're in the lower 1100s. Give it another 2 years and it's hard to know where we'll be at. And actually, I think he's still a junior, isn't he? 2001. He's last year as a junior this year. So he's young. He's got room to grow. He's growing fast. He's getting stronger fast. Like, I want to say like 2 years and he could be a legitimate threat for Jesus.
And the thing, if you remember what Jesus looked like 3 years ago, because he's 3 years older than Timur. If you remember what Jesus looked like 3 years ago, he was a lot less muscular. I mean, these guys, your Timur's age, it's not just body fat he's gaining. He's putting on muscle every year, and he will continue to put on muscle mass. He hasn't peaked in muscularity. Give him another 2-3 years, he's going to be fully developed 120 plus. We might see some battles, gentlemen. Jesus, and this is a good thing for Jesus. He needs it. He needs a head-to-head. Oh my gosh, if I miss or I have an off day, I don't win anyways. This guy's good. This guy could take it from me. That's what you need for people to start tuning in, because we love Jesus. A heavyweight could put on a show without any competition because they're going to do crazy things. But year after year after year, people are going to be start looking for some competition. And to Jesus's benefit, Timur is gaining at a rapid pace, probably along the same pace as Jesus was 3 years ago. I haven't crunched the numbers and looked, but I think Timur, off the cuff, off my head, I haven't crunched the numbers, but I feel like this is around what Jesus was doing 3 years ago. And he might catch up, and they're going to be neck and neck. Because you just don't go on forever adding kilos. Eventually you peak and you start fighting for a kilo here, a kilo there. Now these guys are big, so 10 kilos to them is like a kilo for an 83, right? So whatever, I got you. But like Matt saying, he put 40 kilos on his total. That's huge. But when you're 1,000 kilo total, percentage wise, it isn't like an 83 putting on 40 kilos in 4 months. For my bronze medal position, gentlemen, Musa from Libya, I see him putting on 100 kilos extra onto his total from what I could find on open powerlifting. So I'm not believing that. I think Stanley Oden from France, he's going to be over 1,000 kilos. He's already back in December, went over 1,000 kilos in the gym. I seen him in prep hit 390 for a deadlift. He's got a monster deadlift on him. So he's a big puller. I think Stanley Oden clinches that bronze medal and ends up punching his ticket to the World Games. Stanley representing France, of course. So there's my 1, 2, 3. Jesus, Timur, and Stanley. I'll give a shout out to the Canadian Eric Willis, Steven Ringoat from Belgium, a fan favorite, super nice guy. See him at, I think, like every single freaking World Championships I've commentated since 2017, maybe 16. Maybe he's at 16 with me as well. I can't remember now, but he's a staple of worlds when I think about the World Championships. But that's my 1, 2, 3. We could swing around. You guys can add any other notes, but I think you guys are all on the same page. What do you think, Eric?
Yeah, same page. Only thing I would add, if you're looking, I mean, not add, but even just clarify, if you're looking at the nominations, I couldn't find an Instagram for Musa, Abdul Rahman Musa. And yeah, his highest total that I could find anywhere is a 965. So there's an extra 70 kilos sitting around that we're not sure where that's from. So I think it's pretty clearly going to be Jesus, then Timur. And then after that, you're looking at a pretty big gap between the next 2 spots. So Stanley Oden has probably got it locked in for the bronze medal, unless the Libyans are basing that 1035 on something other than gumption and hope. So
and Stanley's got a big deadlift. If someone surprises him, he's probably going to pull behind someone who's going to get the drop on him. So fairly comfortable. What are you thinking, Rory?
Very much the same. I've got Stanley Oden as a not super confident 3rd place, Jesus and Timur 1st and 2nd. And I will just say that I'll throw Steve's hat in the ring for probably best dressed man at Worlds, Steve Ringo.
Oh, wow. Yeah, he's in the conversation anyways. Well. Penn is here, so let's settle down. It's a conversation.
Well, I believe that
Russ is showing up too. Let's not forget.
Who is?
Russ or he at the warm-ups? I mean,
exactly.
I mean, come on.
Can I say something? Did you see Matt Gary at Sheffield with the freaking fedora hat, the whole nine? My man,
Yes,
that's a fair point.
It's a conversation. It's a conversation.
Yep. Okay, maybe we can talk about that one in more detail afterwards.
Did you see me in my posing trunks before they kicked me out of the banquet?
That's right. That's right. We'll do other recap show. We'll have our 1, 2, 3 of the best dressed. Matt, what are you thinking? I'm assuming you're same page.
Identical podium to you 3 gentlemen.
Okay, fellas, we could wrap this up with what we think about the sweep. Yay or nay? I know, Matt, you don't like to talk of the sweep. I've talked about it on the podcast how it unduly puts pressure on lifters, and it probably does. And then some lifters have come on the podcast and said, yeah, especially when certain people are way ahead favorites, on Team USA being like, yeah, let's fucking sweep it. And then other people like, my friend, I am in a neck and neck flip a coin battle in my weight class. And the pressure you're putting on me, it's bad enough to put the pressure of being a world champion, but to think that it's going to be my fault that all of USA doesn't sweep if I come in only silver medal at the world championships. So that's why the sweep talk for guys like Garcia, Petrie, who are like, hey, Jesus, you're a far and away favorite. You're talking sweep. Good. It spices things up for you. It's too spicy for me, man. I don't need that right now. So I know how you feel about Matt, and it makes sense. Especially that's why head coaches in all sports rarely throw that pressure on their players and make bold claims like that. It's just not a good idea to overpressurize your team like that. Let the players say it. They can say it. If Petrie wants to come out saying, "Don't worry, we're going to sweep," good. But I get it. So, and you talked openly, Matt, it's statistically very difficult to get a sweep.
Correct. I mean, I have no problem with each one of these men exuding supreme confidence and some of them talking sweep, but it's inappropriate for a coach to do that, in my view. And statistically, the likelihood of it happening is slim. I think, look, on paper, the USA men's team, the talent is irrefutable. However, there are a lot of things that need to bounce our way. People need to travel. They need to make weight. We need to be on the positive end of judges' calls. We know the judging is tight and they hold the lifters to a high standard, as they should. We should all want to be held to the highest standard. But there are a lot of things that have to bounce our way in situations. I mean, we could lose out on a lot number situation and get a really lousy lot number, which decreases our strategic advantage in a weight class, and then I'm not able to play the game that we want to play, and so on and so forth. So statistically, the likelihood of it happening, if I were a betting man, I would bet against it. But that does not mean that I am not supremely confident in each one of these lifters, because I am. So, but
how about this? Let me rephrase this. And Matt, you don't have to jump in on this because
yep.
everything I already said about head coaches putting too much pressure on their team, it's better not to. But fellas, Rory, Eric, let's put it this way, because I think both you guys have already said openly a sweep. You don't think don't let me put words in your mouth. You both don't think it's going to sweep, right?
Well, here's the thing. Like, you heard our picks. I didn't pick the U.S. In every single weight class, so I obviously don't think it's going to be a sweep. So no, I'd be happy to give my odds.
Well, how about this? I was going to ask. Okay, I can get your odds, and also, having said that, of all the nations, is this the most likely you've seen going into Worlds 2 sweep? Are we as close to that conversation as you've seen? Because I've been powerlifting since 2008. I've been commentating every Worlds and doing preview shows since 2016. I've been around for every single Classic Worlds. And in the Classic Worlds era, I don't know if I've ever seen any national team with this strong of a case to sweep. And when I say that, I mean the only two that I think are maybes is 66 and 93. And in 66, Jonathan is ranked nominated number 1. And in 93, Petrie, a lot of people are picking, and it's like, this is about as good as you get for a possibility of sweeping. Can we land on that lily pad together, holding hands?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But like to Eric's point, like, I haven't even picked the US to win every class. Like, so obviously I don't think that the odds of sweeping are super high. But the other thing that I'll say, which Matt and I have both alluded to already, is that even for the classes where it looks like a particular athlete is well in advance, there's a whole bunch of things that have to happen correctly between now and then in order for that to actually happen. So if we look at something that looks sewn up, right? Like, say the 74 kilo class, Austin Perkins, he's got a large lead. That does not mean he is going to win still, right? Like, he still has to travel. He still has to make weight. His equipment still needs to show up. He needs to be uninjured. He needs to not randomly get food poisoning because now he's eating in a country that he's probably never been to before and probably doesn't speak the language. Like, there are 1,000 tiny things that add up to getting a gold medal on the day. And
Mhm.
even if you are a runaway favorite, you are not 100% chance to win. Take a look at Ray Williams in 2019. Like, how many people said that Ray was not going to win that? Like, barely anyone, right? And he
Yeah.
still didn't win. Like, he had a 100-kilo lead, and he lost. Like, these things are not guaranteed. Like, people still need to show up and lift. And so I actually did the maths on this. If we say that there is a 90% chance of each American winning 8 classes, 90% chance of winning each class, that still only means there's a 43% chance that they sweep. And then we add in the fact that, like, there's a couple of classes that not only is it hotly contested, but in my opinion, the Americans aren't even the favorite to win. And that 43% drops to like 6, 7, 8%, depending on the exact odds that you put on any individual lifter.
The thing is, even when the classes where the American might not be the favorite, it is so freaking close. They're like those classes have to be the 93. And if Petrie's not your favorite, my God, it's a flip of the coin between him and whoever you got. And 66. And if Garcia's not your favorite, my God, I picked Penna, and then 2 seconds later, it's like, oh my God, what if it's Garcia? Like, you could flip the coin.
Yeah, but you changed your mind because it's Father's Day.
Yeah, you're not a reliable.
What are you, a monster?
Do you want to check the moon phase next time as well, just to really lock
Thank
it in?
That's a statistic. You can't lose on Father's Day. That's a stat.
Somebody has to lose on Father's Day.
No, not a father.
So I had.
I know it doesn't make sense.
I actually asked this question back in March on Threads, the world's fastest growing social media platform. Make sure to give Helms G a follow. That's a joke. Actually, do give me a follow. I'm desperate. I need acknowledgement. But 60% of the people who voted said that the U.S. Team, the men's team, would get a clean sweep at Worlds. So I don't think people necessarily think in statistical terms. They're thinking in each weight class, is there a good shot? Hey, let's go with that. And then it's kind of this blanket thought. But when it really does come down to what's the probability of just something bad going on, and at least in one of these instances, it does get a little dicey. To answer your question, though, was there other eras where this was as likely to happen? I was thinking about it, and I was thinking, oh, well, Belarus, we had a good shot, but there was a period on the men's team where there's these 2 dudes named Sergey who just pretty much locked up some of the lighter weight classes, where it just wasn't going to happen. So I do think this is the highest probability we have seen to date on the men's side, which is exciting in and of itself. And I've heard the head coach is pretty good.
He's okay. You know what?
Did he write a book or something?
Yeah, I've heard about it.
He
Yeah,
legitimately wrote the book on handling. Here's the thing. If Team USA and Matt pulls this off, holy smokes, this is huge. How statistically phenomenal it is. How insanely difficult it is to pull off. If Team USA pulls it off, we're going to remember this year like the Dream Team, the 1992 Olympic Dream Team with Michael Jordan and all that. They are that for our powerlifting. I don't care, 20 years later, they're going to make another documentary about powerlifting pivotal moments this will be one of the years. Yes, it will. Matt, you'll be in all those Netflix documentaries. They're going to come back for you and say, we need you to talk about it. It will be huge. And if powerlifting gets, in 10 years' time, way bigger, and it never happens again, people will double back. It's inevitable. People ask the question, has anyone ever swept? And people will look back and say, well, actually, yes, once. And then you inevitably will look at the teams. Well, who comprised that team? And all of these guys' stories get retold, including Jonathan Garcia on Father's Day when he told his sick son. Okay.
So what's going to happen if America sweeps is that there's going to be 400 clips of Eric and I saying that Team America is not going to sweep.
100%.
On Instagram.
100%.
I will all of a sudden
so many
no
Instagram
longer
stories.
lose my dual citizenship. I'm now stuck in New Zealand.
Everyone's going to remember that
for like 24 hours.
Yep.
Ryan, if the sweep happens, do you promise to have me back on?
Yeah, only if the sweep happens.
to tell some of the backstories that people aren't privy to, some of the side stuff. Because look, I've seen all the numbers, I've seen all the data, I'm privy to a lot of what's going on behind the scenes. So
how about I have a proposal, 6-pack.
Yep.
And only a man of gumption, honor, and self-belief
God.
would take this on. So,
Oh God.
this will say whatever it says about you. If
You haven't described me there.
the U.S. men's team sweeps, will you rename the podcast just for the rest of 2024? Matt Gary
God.
is king of the lifts.
No.
Oh.
God.
No. Matt Gary doesn't want this, which is why I want it so bad, because he'll be embarrassed the
Yeah.
whole time. But for the remaining 6 months, Matt Gary is king of the lifts. You have to change the logo.
Time.
You got to change.
Oh,
Oh,
Logo
Yeah,
just
yeah,
becomes
yeah.
Matt's face for the rest of the
Mhm.
year.
I will put Matt's face on the logo.
Lord
I
have
will put
mercy.
Matt's face on the logo for the remainder. That's what
Let's
I'll
go.
do. That's what I'll do. And let me say
Let's
something.
go.
If they sweep, the amount of talk we need to have afterwards
Oh my
of
God.
obviously we're going to do a recap show, but the amount of discussion this will snowball off of, we're going to have to talk about this team compared to other franchises and other sports, and like
Yeah.
the amount of discussion period, all the athletes we have to have on to talk about what happened, and especially like Petrie and Garcia and the guys in the tight battles. But holy smokes, if they
Dude.
pull off the sweep, oh my God.
How many of the European lifters who are going to be listening to this are now throwing up in their mouths?
Oh, Tony Cliff is like, hit that bullshit button I sent you, sir. Where's that
Exactly.
bullshit button I sent you?
So
He's slamming his fist on his bullshit button right now.
yep.
Hannah's listening to this right now, and there's a
Oh.
fire burning in his chest,
Oh,
and he wants
yeah.
to win just
Yeah.
so America
Thanks.
doesn't
Thanks.
swing to
Thanks.
nothing
Thanks.
else.
Thanks, guys.
That's
Pan-
right.
Pana's going to boycott Father's Day.
Really
It's not going to go
That's
over well, but
right.
that's just
He's like, fuck Father's Day. That's right. He's like, me and my dad celebrate the day after now. That's
That's
it.
right.
That's it. We changed it up. Listen, fellas, I appreciate you guys coming on the podcast. Eric, we did not hit 2 hours. I'm sorry, love. We get a little chatty, don't we? Though we got kind of close. We're short of 3 hours though, but we're getting a little close to it. But anyways, fellas, you guys are my dream team. I appreciate the shit out
Thank
of you.
you for having us.
Thank you each and every time. All the work you put in, it is hours of research. I know I have to do it too, and I love it when you guys hop on the podcast. Your takes are undeniable, and I love having these discussions. And if I see you in Lithuania, cool. If you guys aren't in Lithuania, for those who aren't, let's do this recap show, and let's talk about all the storylines that unfold. Much appreciated, gentlemen. Everybody listening, jump in the fantasy league, you cowards. Let's see what happens. And until next time, 6-pack Lapadat, 6 up, and we are out.